disappointed in every one of you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I kiss you on the mouth.
No, I'm not cool with that. I'm sorry.
One more time.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
I mean, I'm dealing with degenerate animals.
I'm disappointed in every one of you. Disappointed in every one of you.
All right, come on.
Honestly, I can't do it no more.
I'm disappointed in every one of you.
Let me tell you why.
It's gonna be all right, Nicky. Go ahead, shoot.
You just killed a fucking man.
What are you going to do about it?
You're happy because you got nothing. You don't got a thing. You're happy because you got nothing. You got nothing.
I want to get out of this rat hole. I want to get online. I need
BDA Boxing.
Welcome everybody to BDA Boxing Podcast, broadcasting to you live from the True North. This is your good friend Mr. BDA, flying solo for the moment. We've got a lot to talk about last night's fights. We've had Lawrence Okolie, we had Vergil Ortiz, and we had Beterbiev, the favorites, all scoring stoppages as expected. So there weren't that many surprises, at least not that impressive surprises. There were a couple of things that I think we can discuss around here. So shout out to everybody for joining us. Before we get to that, let's get the business out of the way, fellas. If you want to keep the gravy train rolling, you know the drill. You can send a couple of shekels our way via the Super Chat, the BDA Patreon page, or the BDA PayPal page. But of course, the most important thing is that you continue to like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and just generally spreading the BDA gospel. I will be opening up the phone line soon. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be inviting a couple of people here, but I will be opening up the phone lines within a couple of minutes so that you guys can call in and give us your assessment of last night's fights. Shout out to SSB28, John Doe, Uncle Burn Apostrophe, Kid Top Skull, Arian Yuda, what the fuck? Recognize the Matrix, shout out to Recognize, Blue Collar Sports TV, shout out to Blue Collar, aka Del Boy, Triple JJJ, shout out to Triple JJJ, Mr. Straight 50, Velo X, Trill Ballins, Jay Perez, Mr. E, shout out to Mr. E, Saint Britt in the house as well, The Shepherd of Sons, Blues Boxing, John 316, John Doe, Iceman, shout out to Iceman, shout out to Official Scorecard Boxing Science, GB Guthrie, and many more people to come, I'm sure. Guys, thank you for joining us. Let me invite a couple of people over here at the Discord. See if we can start cooking with a little oil. Never hurt nobody. I'm going to tell you something. I'm curious to get your assessment as well as I write this of last night's fights. Now, some people are going to say, BDA, early show. Well, Sunday shows can always be either early or late, but always, and I do mean always, top quality, top-notch stuff. At least that's what we try to offer here at BDA Boxing. I see we've got... shit. All right. Sorry about that, because I called Stu first, and then he's still on the line. What was I going to say? So yeah, I'm curious to get you guys' assessments on the fights. We certainly, again, nothing much that we didn't expect. I'm looking here, and, Beterbiev scored a stoppage in the 10th round. We had Okolie stopping Krzysztof Glowacki as expected, and of course, Vergil Ortiz stopping Maurice Hooker. I like to say that Maurice. Anyway, I'm going a little autistic here. The point is, fellas, there were, like I said, no surprises. By the way, we got Stu online. Story there.
Yeah, what's happening, BDA?
Good to have you on board, Stu. Nothing much, just here doing a little show. First of all, right off the bat, I want to ask you about the fights, if you saw them last night, but also maybe to address a little bit of the controversy that you've stirred up with your videos in regard to Anthony Joshua.
Well, this is it, man. I've upset a few people, haven't I? Upset a few people. I mean, just it is how it is. I mean, I can only tell you how I feel. See, this is the problem. I don't pander to no one. I'd rather have nobody like me than people like me for being fake.
That's right.
And that's just how I'm just seeing what I'm seeing with Joshua fans, and they've proved my point by the comments in the comments section. Just some real little bitches in there, aren't there? Let's just say that. But yeah, I want to know. I'm looking forward to Kev's call tonight. I told him that Glowacki, as soon as Cody lands a good one, it's night, didn't I? So
yeah, I mean,
looking forward to Kev's call.
In hindsight, do you think we did the right thing by putting Okoli's name first, or?
Well, I think he proved that last night, didn't he? But let's be real. I mean, look, Glowacki looked like a fucking welterweight in there, didn't he? Glowacki, whatever you want to call him. He looked like a welterweight in there compared to a Coley. Coley's huge. How he makes cruiserweight, I'll never know. But I don't think I don't know if Coley can stay at that weight too long. I mean, he's only going to get bigger, and it's going to be a struggle in the end. But we'll see, innit? He's got a belt now after 16 fights. So you like about a Coley, but 16 fights, world champion. You've got to take your hat off to him.
What do you like about Okoli? What are some of the things that you see in him that are going to cause everybody at cruiserweight and maybe even heavyweight trouble?
He does the boxing fundamentals quite well. He has a nice jab, a big, powerful right hand. He's a bit wide with his hooks. He needs to tighten them up a little bit. But he's just one of them guys that it's going to be very hard to get inside him. Do you know what I mean? And he's quite strong. When you get inside, he just grabs and holds you. He's very Klitschko-like, a Coley, but with a very Klitschko-like. But he's going to be a hard man to beat. You know, with them fucking them arms. I mean, they just go on forever, don't they? It was like Spectre Gadget, go Gadget arms, weren't it? Do you know what I mean? It's just he's going to be a difficult guy, and he's got. This is the problem. This is the thing with boxing. If you've got serious power, it's going to bail you out of situations so many times. You know, and that's a good thing about having a power. It makes it a short night sometimes, and no one wants to be in a 12-round war in every fight because that will take years off your career. You want to get it over and done with as quick as you can. You know, obviously it's nice to get the round, but you can't be getting rounds in when you're in a world title fight. You need to be going to win. And yeah, it was a good performance. I thought Lawrence Okoye is probably one of his better performances I've seen from him because this guy's known to stink the joint out. Very boring at times.
Yeah, he's not afraid to hold, which is one of the things you hate to see, especially a guy who you know can fight better than what he shows sometimes. And when a guy like him goes in there and, hey, let me go punch and hold, it's one of the most boring things out there. More boring than a guy that just dances around the ring.
Oh, yeah. This is the thing. I mean, look, the problem when you've got long arms like a Coley and Wilder is the same. It just takes your inside game from you. There's not many fighters with arms that long can throw the short uppercuts and the short shots to the body and stuff, and the little short left hooks and stuff. They're just, when you've got arms like that, you have to keep a distance. So when someone does get inside you, you just got to hold them, because if you start trading with a brawler in the pocket, this is going to be one outcome, and that's your sleeping. So exactly. I get why he does it. It's just very tedious to watch at times. I mean, his fight with Isaac Chamberlain was probably one of the worst fights I've seen in many years. Absolutely dreadful. So, you know, but he has improved a little bit for me. He seems a bit more polished up. His footwork seems a little bit better. He just seems like he's improving every time, and that can be only a good thing for a Coley. I mean, he's going to be a hard man to beat. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah, man, definitely, for sure. And especially now, I'm looking at I'm sharing the Ring Magazine ratings here, the Cruiserweight ratings. Right now, the Cruiserweight division is in one of those times where it's pretty thin. The top guys moved up for bigger money over in heavyweight. So right now, we've got a bunch of Euros that many of us have never seen before. I mean, I'm going to start digging up some video on these guys in the next couple of days to sort of sharpen up on the Cruiserweight division. But for the most part, the Cruiserweight division seems to be back to those days where it was like a second-rate division. So how long do you think before Okoli moves up to heavyweight? Within the next 2 years, would you say? Or
before then, before looking the size at him, you're talking before then, yeah, I'd probably say another 18 months at most. But like you said, the divisions, since Usyk cleaned it up, it's just lost that little bit of spark, because when that tournament was going, it was a nice division. It was quite stacked. But like I said, you've got Usyk gone up now. You've got Gassiev, he's gone up, you know, and you've got a couple of the other guys on the way down, sort of thing. So, I mean, look, was it Dorticus and Bradis fought for the last tournament, weren't it?
Yeah.
and that's basically U6 fucking leftovers. So that lost a bit of spark, that tournament, for me. I mean, to go again with a cruiserweight tournament, I just thought it was a bad move. I think we got it. It was good. Move on. We should have gone another division, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest. Bradis and Okoli are the best guys in that division for me.
Absolutely, man. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the chat here on top of that, and people are making it nationalistic again. Andres Hernandez says, the African Brit slayed the pole. Triple JJJ says, Dwyer sends Okoli back home with his teeth in a red cup. St. Brit says, literally every time you watch a Polish fighter, they get knocked out. Oh, come on, guy. I mean, I'm telling you, this chat room becomes... it's funny, but it's toxic at the same time.
Thing. Now you know why I'm like I am. It's usually me that they're fucking targeted. So
yeah. Paja says it was a nice win for Nigeria.
look. Yeah, I mean, look, Lawrence Okoli. You know, Lawrence Okoli is obviously not an English name, is it? But who are we to say? This is what I mean. I'm not into this telling people they can't be who they want to be. I mean, let Joshua be. If Joshua is British to me, Okoli's British to me. If he's wearing the Union Jack, we're born here. He lives our sort of British ways, if there's any such thing now, then you've got to say he's a Brit. I mean, he could obviously fight for Nigeria too. There's nothing saying he can't. But yeah, I mean, let's be real. If Okoli was living in Nigeria, what's the chances he'd be a world champion after 16 fights?
Yeah, he doesn't. He's with Eddie Hearn, so that type of backing.
There you go. The thing is, like I said, in all boxing, mate, you've always got to be around the right people, no matter how good you are. I mean, if you could be like Josh Taylor, wasting his time with fucking McGuigan. Mm-hmm. You know, he could have been even a bigger star if he'd gone with Eddie Hearn to start off with, or something like that. You know, look at Froch. Froch, the best years of his career were wasted with Mick Hennessy. Mick Hennessy, the guy. I remember when he fought Abraham in Finland. I mean, the fucking thing was on a box office channel called Prime TV that no one had ever heard of. I couldn't even get through to him to book the fucking fight. Do you know what I mean? So that's where Froch was, and then obviously when he went to Eddie Hearn, and then it sort of like his career. So, but he lost the best years of his career, and that's why it's so important to have the right promotion. Look, Bob Arum's one of the great promoters, but sometimes he's not the right promoter for you, because I don't think he was the right promoter for Crawford or Lomachenko. Mm-hmm. I think if them guys had gone, look, they've made good money, he's done good things with them, but I think they could have been even better if Hearn had got hold of him. I think Hearn would have, you know how Hearn fucking worships his fighters and puts them on a pedestal, and he would have done that with Lomachenko and Crawford massively, like he does with Canelo. I mean, has he fucking got out of Canelo's ass yet? I don't think so. But yeah, that's why it's so important, BDA, to have the right people around you.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, look, we hear a lot of people in the YouTube community say, "Oh, promoters are snakes," and you know, there's factions within the YouTube community, boxing community, that they root for a certain promoter. Some people are for Al Haymon, some people are for Bob Arum, but never forget that a lot of these guys, they will exploit fighters in a certain sense, but at the same time, they're necessary. I mean, these guys won't make millions all by themselves. They're not the Warren Buffett, business savvy Donald Trump type people. You know, they can't promote an event. They do the fighting. The promoter does the promoting, and somewhere in between, they find the common ground and they make a lot of money for each other. But you're right, man. That's something that people seem to miss there. They think any old fighter now with social media can become his own product. That's not the way it works. But by the way, Stu, also wanted to ask you, in terms of Okoli, before we move on to Vergil Ortiz,
yeah, go ahead.
What fight, other than the Brady's fight, is there anything else that you would be interested from him in the Cruiserweight division?
Do you know what I mean? Like I said, there's not really a lot around there. I mean, Golaski's a decent name, you know. Golaski's a decent name. He's only ever lost to fucking Usyk and Bradis, I believe. So, and I think that was a fucking legal blow. Where was a headbutt or something? I mean, so look, he's had a good fight already. There's probably only one more fight in that division for me. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That's Bradis, and then what? So for me, yeah, I'd try and get him up to heavyweight as quick as possible, because some of them flat-footed bums at heavyweight division, he could cause them a few problems. Do you know what I mean? And because of the speed of his shots, that's why Wilder knocks these sort of guys out. They're just too slow to get out of the way of them.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been saying that for years too, man. It's not that Wilder. Yeah, Wilder, he's got his deficiencies, but man, with that quick 1-2, a lot of these mediocre heavyweights, they can get out of the way of it. They don't know how to. So definitely Waller's still dangerous, and maybe Okoli down the line can be something similar. Shout out to Xavier Sammy for his contribution. He says, Bud can box and bang. Vergil taking that L. Oh, all right. Shout out to Xavier Sammy for his prediction and his contribution. All right, so we got Jimmy on the line. Jimmy, do you want to talk about the Okoli fight, or should we get into the Vergil Ortiz fight right off the bat?
Well, I'm not talking about the Okoli fight. I don't know, not educated enough on it to really get into it. But, yeah, I'll talk about the Ortiz. Listen, I'm big on him, right? Mm-hmm. Big. I have been, and he just, I appreciate the heart. I appreciate, but he's not ready. He's not ready, man. I mean, that's crazy. He's not ready for Crawford.
I hate to sound a casual here, Jimmy, but I haven't, because I've not been very well. I fell asleep last night. I haven't caught up with that one yet. How did it go?
He's got the kind of the peekaboo style, right? And he just throws vicious punches. And hey, props to Hooker. I was wrong on it. I thought he just.
What was the result of the fight?
I'm sorry. He knocked him out. I believe. No, it wasn't a knockout. It was a stop because he broke his right hand, but it looked like it was broken from a punch. It looked like actually when he was going to throw a punch, it looked like fucking Ortiz, Vergil caught him with a punch. Actually punched his hand and broke it. This kid, dude, he throws hard punches. Hooker said it after the fight. He's like, hardest punch I've ever fought.
So what makes you think he's not ready then, Jim? What makes you think he's not ready then, bro?
Myself right now, I just don't think Crawford can bring. He just needs to see a couple. He's seen pretty much, if you go throughout his history, he's only had 15, 16 fights. And it's in the first 8, you can't even count 8 to 10, right? Those are just throw me's, right? Give me's. Those guys aren't even bringing anything. So you actually think about it. He hasn't seen enough of too many styles. He hasn't seen, I don't think, enough southpaws. I just think he needs a couple of more 3 fights. It will go a fucking. I'm not saying, all right, put it this way. He could get in there and catch Crawford a shot and beat him, right? Knock him out. But if I was handling him, I'd want him to see just a few more people so he can see some more craft, learn a few more things. You know what I'm saying?
Agree. So I didn't see the fight last night, but I've seen enough of Vergil Ortiz to know this kid could be seriously a serious threat to anyone and a future reigning world champion. There's no doubt about that. But he's one of them fighters that I wouldn't rush too quickly to Crawford, because let's be real.
He's only 22 too, right, bro? He's only 22.
Crawford's a different animal to anything that Vergil Ortiz is for. And with these young kids, but when they get in there with a world-class operator, they sort of they lose the will to win very quickly when nothing's working, and that's the problem. I mean, Terence Crawford's a seasoned, skilled guy, man. Like switch hitter, he can bang as well. He can take the fight to you. That's a lot for a young fighter to deal with for me. And I think if you stick him in with Crawford now, he probably gets knocked out. So for me, I'd give him a couple of more. I'd give him a couple of more, maybe 3 more before.
Agreed.
I'm looking at the comment section at the chat room here. SSB says that the punch broke his arm, but that Hooker was hitting Ortiz a lot. 1 foot out the door says Marciano. He has that Marciano type of accumulation of punches on the arms, elbows, shoulders, etc. Alex Stancato says, I don't think he's ready for Crawford. Mo Hooker isn't Crawford. That's a good point. GB Guthrie says, it sucks that Hooker broke his hand, but Calzaghe did that all the time and fought through the pain. Well, hey, listen, I mean, everyone's different. Who knows the extent of his injury? I haven't looked into that. Yeah.
Calzaghe's at fault for breaking his hands. Calzaghe was the reason, himself to blame. His hands he used to take his gloves off after a fight, and his hands would be unwrapped in his gloves. He didn't wrap his hands up properly.
Jeez, Louise.
Honestly, that's why they call him Cal Slappy. He had to learn to slap his punches because he couldn't fucking turn them properly with the breaks he's had. But yeah, I mean, look, this Ortiz, this kid, he's got serious power, and when you've got serious power, you're in any fight.
Stu, when you rewatch the fight, you're going to notice one thing, man. Those announcers, they drive me fucking insane. Not so much Mora, because he just tries to go along with this, saying he doesn't have a strong enough personality to bite back. But they say some stupid shit. Like, if you were to look at him, the first thing I would say, if I was training that kid, I would actually even say, how much money does it cost to shave down these cheekbones a bit? Just go in and get surgery, just to shave them down, because you can do that. It doesn't really change the structure of your face that much. Ricky Hatton had to have a surgery over his eyes. Yes, and what you do is you shave the edges, dude. It just kind of they file it down because he's got very Mesoamerican, Meso-Indian features. You know what I mean? Very high cheekbones, very high, very sharp. Exactly, and
that's why Cotto looks. That's why Cotto looks like he's always been hit by a truck when he's in a big fight, isn't he? Have you noticed how about Cotto? He's with his cheekbones are quite high. He's always getting busted. Yeah. He could probably, like I said, the best way to do it though is try not to get hit on the fucking face. That'd be the best way. But look, it's easier said than done.
And what I did like is he realized the head attack wasn't working. He just wasn't in the right position to hurt him with his headshots. Hooker has enough ring experience, and Hooker was training with over at Crawford's camp, and Crawford was there in the corner and they won him last night. But so you could tell like he wasn't in the right position. So smartly, he said to himself, I realized after 6 rounds, it was used, putting out way too much energy trying to take him out with headshots. So he said, fuck it. He just started going to the body, into the arms, in the body. And and he basically beat him. You could see each round, once he changed the attack to the body, it only took 3 rounds. And
that's
Hooker just didn't have the legs.
When you got guys with like quick footwork and, quite slick, quite hard to hit clean, the first thing you do, you go to the body, you chop away and slow them down, and that's when you can start landing clean. You know, a lot of big punches, a lot of big punches, they headhunt, and they can become very predictable. They would sort of like telegraph their shots, and these world class fighters are seeing them all day long. So obviously going to the body is so important. You know, I just don't understand why we don't see enough body shots in the boxing these days.
Well, Mickey Ward will tell you that's the reason why he went to the ball. It's kind of a body thing, was always big around here. Every fighter wanted to be great at body shots because it takes you out for so long. Because you shake off, you're either knocked out or you're not. You can get up and, get your facilities, but man, those body shots linger, really linger. And like he knew, like, if I can't beat you in talent, you might be more talented, but if I catch you in the body, every good body shot just takes a little out of your legs, takes a little snap out of your bounce. And like you said, it's just you chop them down. It was Rocky Marciano's whole game plan. Just went in flat-footed and just beat your body like it was a punching bag. And then you just fucking couldn't even... That sometimes, though, you ever see those pictures, man? The fucking dudes he fought the next day, they would show if they were a light-skinned guy, they would have bruises all over their fucking arms.
Mate, yeah. Them gloves had hardly any padding in, and knowing Marciano and his links, they probably didn't have any padding at all in them.
Well, they were given to him they were given to the fighters up to an hour, 2 hours before the fight, so they could, because they were so stiff, they would work them in, and so the trainer would have you put them on, you would bend your hand, and then it would just make a fingernail scratch on the leather where your knuckles are at, and they would bend it back and forth until by the 4th, 5th round, you're literally getting punched in the face with just leather covered wrapped hands. And even worse, they used cotton back then, which is illegal now because cotton becomes like a cast. It's the wraps they used to use. So it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Michael Carvajal on the show on Friday, and I told him the story about the story you always tell about Mickey Ward, about how when you had sparred, or trained separately, and you had sparred, and you asked him, hey, do you ever get used to the fucking pain? He goes, yeah, I kind of like he seemed to understand the story. It's almost as if they're cut from the same cloth, those two guys.
Yeah, of course they are. Yeah, of course they are.
This is why a lot of fighters turn to drugs when they quit boxing, because they try to replace that adrenaline of being in a boxing ring and being in a fight full stop. Some people just get off on it, and they try to replace that adrenaline with cocaine and other stuff.
That's exactly what it is, Stu. Any sports psychologist, that's what they start out with. That's exactly what it is. They replace that high. They want that fucking... Think about being like Vergil Ortiz last night. You could just see it in his face, man. He was standing up on the ropes and the people, screaming for you, and like you just want to fight in front of everybody and you won. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's... What are you ever going to feel that kind of high again? And they become lost. The same way with when they come out of a war. A lot of these guys after the Vietnam War ended up becoming like fucking Hell's Angels or bikers. They just wanted that excitement of doing crazy shit.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, man. They could find something similar in the adult industry. I don't know why more people don't get into that. But anyway, listen, I also wanted to say in terms of the Ortiz, it was a shame that what happened to Hooker, man, because he was fighting pretty well. Most people in the YouTube boxing community were saying that Ortiz was gonna just run through him. He certainly tried, but Hooker at 147, he's getting better now. Hooker too. He's lost by knockout, okay, but he's gaining experience, and he came in there with a great game plan, man. Stick and move, jab, go to the body, punch in between and through Ortiz's shots. But just Ortiz, man, that guy is so strong, and his attack is so varied. Goes to the body, both sides of the body too, by the way, not just that gosh darn left hook.
I know.
The thing is, though, BDA, when you've got a young lion like Ortiz on top of you throwing big shots, you need your hands to be good. You need to be throwing big shots to get him off you himself. You know, you got to get this guy's respect. You got to be timing it. If you can't throw a shot, you're in big trouble against these sort of guys. You know, jabs are not going to get these. The jab is not going to get this guy off you. You have to hit this guy with a clean right, straight down the middle. And if his hands are not working, or you know, then he's fucked. Might as well call it a day. Come back for another day, innit? You know what I mean? In the day, it could have been a bad one if he'd have carried on.
Yeah, no, you could see the swelling, dude, through the wrap. Like, he held it up. You can actually see it was a boxer's break. It looked like the bones in the back of his hands broke.
Yeah. Hooker's not showing me anything to convince me that he's a quitter. He probably would have carried on fighting. But look, it made sense to me. You've got a fucking young guy like Ortiz with that sort of power swarming you. Yeah, I'll come back another day, thanks. You know what I mean? You need both hands when you got him on you.
And people who fight with one hand almost never win. Like, Mickey would break his hand. He did it 4 or 5 fights in a row. He broke his right hand in the first or second round. But he would never quit. But he'd take a beating. He would just stay in there, fight one-handed, and get beat up. But at that point, it was just, fuck you, man. You're not going to stop me. But it's not smart.
That's what took a lot out of Mickey's career, though, bro. That took a lot of Mickey's best years off him doing that. Do you know what I mean?
He wouldn't stop. You know what I mean? He just like, fuck it. He just never wanted to stop. So, yeah, I know. And everybody'd be yelling, you know, Mick, enough, dude. Just throw the fucking towel in. You're one-handed. Everybody knew it was broken. You'd see him wince the minute he threw the shot. You're like, oh, his hand's broken again. It wasn't until he had that bone fused. That German doctor, the guy.
It's like when Vitali popped his shoulder and people call him a quitter, right? Now, I broke my shoulder playing rugby in 2 places. The 2 big forwards grabbed me, hit me hard. They did. And I broke my shoulder in 2 places. And I'll tell you what, the pain is quite bad. And it's all your movement, believe it or not. Your shoulders involve sort of things. So every time you move it, the pain is unbearable. So
a broken shoulder is the worst, most painful.
Throwing shots.
That's the most. Yeah, I was gonna say, dude, that's the most painful fucking upper body injury or break you can have is a shoulder, because look at your knee only goes like your knee joint right back and forth, your elbow joint kind of back and forth like your knee. Your shoulder rotates 360 degrees. It has, like you said, movement in almost every. So when you pop, dislocate, or break your shoulder, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it when it comes to pain.
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you what, it took me about 4 or 5 months to get that healed again. It doesn't heal very quick either.
No, you never get almost never get your full range of motion back. I bet you even now, there's sometimes you might feel it.
Yeah. Well, for years, when I was lifting weights on the bench, my shoulder was giving way on me. I couldn't straighten it properly. So you like tilting the fucking bar, and you know, it took me a while to get strength back around it, the muscle, but it never heals back. The bone heals on top of each other, doesn't it?
You get calcium buildups. It's little spurs you can get in there. It's a very shoulder's a painful injury.
Stu's the only guy who's not a boxer, but who has boxer-like injuries. The fucking broken hands from all those fights, the shoulder. What else, Stu? Hip replacement?
Well, yeah, because I do alpha male things. Like I play rugby. I fight. I drive cars fast. I like to live a dangerous sort of life. Let's just say that. But
that's why you never became a biker. You would fit the lifestyle.
I had a bike as a kid, and I came off it, and it fucking didn't get back on it. Didn't fancy it again. It took all the skin from my leg and with quite an acne. Didn't fancy that again, so I got a goat cart as well. I'm better than 4 wheels, to be honest. You got to be a bit nutty to have a bike. I've always said that. You got to be a bit fucking nutty to ride a bike.
Yeah.
No, that's why that was my favorite thing in Europe, dude, man. No speed limit on all the fucking highways.
Well, Germany, in the UK, man, I've got about 9 points for speeding. So in the UK, it's a fucking snowflake country, isn't it? So.
But even on the highways, it's higher than 55, right? What's your fast lane?
Yeah, it's 70 miles per hour. Yeah.
Yeah, 70.
Yeah, well, it's in Germany. They don't have any speed limit.
Yeah, the Autobahn was crazy, dude. That was an experience for me, dude. When I first got there, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You have to actually get out of the fucking left lane. I was going 115. I rented a TT, an Audi TT. That was the first car I rented there, and I was doing like 110, cruising along, and I saw lights. They flashed the lights behind you, and I got out. I stepped over to the next lane, dude. I was doing 110. That fucking car, I can't even tell you what it was. It was going so fast, went by me like I was standing still.
Oh no!
Like that. I'm like,
well, I got pulled doing 130 mile an hour the other day by the police. They let me go. You know?
Wow, because shouldn't they suspend your license for that kind of speed? I know they
Ban
do.
me for a year, man. But
fellas, we're back. Sorry about that. We were.
Oh, you're back. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
We're just talking about speed limits on the roads while you.
Because I thought we weren't on the show. I thought like we were just.
We wasn't on the line. We wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know it was like Sunday internet, man. It's. PSK says BDA needs to stop streaming the show via McDonald's Wi-Fi. Trust me, I'm not at McDonald's, man. I don't know what's going on. All right, so what were we talking about? We're talking about injuries, Vergil Ortiz. Oh, by the way, freaking Hooker gave it his all in there, and people were booing him during the interview when he said his hand gave out. I mean, are these people...
That was ridiculous.
Well, I mean, there's nothing surprises me with boxing fans anymore. Just nothing surprises me.
I mean, he stood in the pocket.
I've used this before. If they got any lower, they'd be in the pits of hell. A lot of them. They just didn't get any lower than some of these guys. So, look, I know a quitter when I see one. I know one. B-Hop's done it a couple of times. Zab Judah. I know quitters, mate. But Darrell's well known for it. But that Maurice Hooker's never once showed me in his career that this guy's a quitter. And like you said, he was doing well. I didn't watch the fight, but you said he was doing well. He had a good game plan. So... You know, like I said, unfortunately, he broke his hand. And when you've got a kid like Ortiz on top of you, swinging bombs, hurting you with every shot, you need both hands to get him off you. One's not going to work.
I was impressed with his counters. I thought he threw some really nice counters on Ortiz. His counters were nice. They were crisp. He presented himself. He's got nothing to hang his head about. That kid stood in the pocket when he shouldn't have, even to his own detriment, and exchanged. He showed a ton of heart. Fucking a broken hand the way he broke it, like you said. If you're winning the fight and you have the ability to continue and just push out the next few rounds by sticking him with a jab, maybe you stick in there with a broken hand. But like you said, you need both hands to keep that kid off of you. If you're gonna go after Ortiz one, all you're doing is just which way am I gonna get knocked out? That's all you're fucking determining. That's the only thing left. The only question is what way you get knocked out.
Yeah, once you start having doubts about yourself in the ring as well, like I said, once you start thinking I'm going to get knocked out in a minute, then it just goes downhill from there, you know. Like I said, these guys that call him Maurice Hooker, booing him and calling him a coward or a quitter. I mean, just don't understand the sport of boxing.
Like John Gonzalez.
There's ways to get out of a fight. I've seen loads of fighters get out of fights. And they deserve all the stick they get. But Maurice Hooker, like I said, went in there with a dangerous kid that no one wants really any part of, really. I mean, how many fighters are calling out Vergil Ortiz? I've not heard
nobody.
One.
Yeah, it was in Hooker's own hometown.
He's gone up in weight. You know, he's fighting this dangerous young... Well, he's not even a prospect. This guy's got... Well, the world's his oyster, really. And so you got to give Hooker his credit. I like Maurice Hooker. I do.
I think he turns 23 this week. I mean, he's a kid. He's still he just put it this way. He's only fought once since you would say he got his man strength, right? I mean, you figure about 22, you usually get your man strength. He's only fought once since then. So he hasn't even learned to adjust with that. This kid's a dangerous puncher.
Yeah.
And,
but the thing is,
nobody in the PBC is going to fuck with him. No way.
Yeah, see, Crawford, I just think it's a bit early for Crawford, I think.
Way too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed 100%.
There's no point putting him in with Crawford. He gets schooled and it sets him back 2 or 3 years.
And Oscar knows that. Oscar's not going to do that. There's no chance. So right now, him and Garcia is two, horses. He's not going to put him in against anybody fucking like that. Why? Not at 22. But the thing is now, right? I mean, yeah, and also Crawford fucking said something last night. He was there, and they, had the interview, and with him, he had the mic, and he said, when they asked him about Spence, he goes, "I'm past that. I'm done with that," which was kind of disheartening. But he's just basically saying the truth. Just he knows that fucking Spence wasn't going to fight him because Spence, nobody from the PBC, it's not just Spence, nobody's leaving that fucking island. Just nobody's coming across the street. I mean, he straight up offered the highest payday pro order, and if you're going to take it against what you're calling him the A side, Spence is the A side, the best welterweight, pound for pound, lineage, all that shit. So wait a minute, you want more money to fight somebody you're claiming is a lower grade fighter? It doesn't make sense. So what it tells you is there's probably a directive that nobody's going outside the fucking PBC. So I think he just said what everybody knew.
Right.
Al Haymon brought all this on himself by paying these guys ridiculous money at the start of this PBC thing. You know, he's paying them ridiculous money to fight half decent opponents. Let's just say that. And then look, when it's like when you go to work and say you're getting £1,000 a week, right? Then someone turns around and says, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to give you $5 now." A lot of fighters ain't gonna do it, and this is the problem. You set the bar.
And you're gonna have to work harder too, and you're gonna have to work harder
that's
for
what
it.
I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just this is the problem we got with Crawford. Wouldn't even take a pay cut, even though the COVID thing. He wouldn't even take a $500,000 pay cut or something like that, $1 million pay cut. These fighters are divas these days. They don't need a reason.
Supposedly he regrets that. Can I tell you what I was told? I was told that Crawford really didn't even know about that. It was his attorney, during the negotiations, wouldn't budge off it. And so supposedly Crawford says he would have, and then it's all he took care of that with Bob. He told him, he appreciates it because from the outside it does look pretty shady, right? Man, you won't even step any off your fucking money. You want your full.
Yeah, I mean, look, Crawford's made some good money under Bob, and look, you got to look at it like this: Crawford, as good as he is, his numbers stink, and that's just facts. I mean, the postal numbers were embarrassing.
Yeah, but that was 6 years ago. Since then,
I don't think Crawford can hold a pay-per-view event to himself without having a good dance partner. It's not like Canelo. Canelo will get, like I said,
Canelo's the man. But the thing with that that's the one thing
you have to have a good dance partner for me.
But since then, though, dude, he's put up actually very impressive numbers. In 2019, he had the #1 watched boxing event on cable. It beat every other fucking 2.9 million. So he actually put in the best numbers. So since then, he's done better. I mean, it was that Postel fucking pay-per-view numbers were horrible. But that was 6 years ago. So I'm curious myself. And what makes me suspicious is the PBC, the only one who ever announces those numbers is an in-house employee. So how much weight does that have, Yeah. But I agree, though. Spence should be the A side. But when he jumped off, did you hear what Spence said recently too, Stu? He went from, remember before he said 60-40 on the A side? So I guess that Crawford's fine, whatever. I guess he was going to do that. And all of a sudden now it's, 70-30. You know what? 80-20.
Yeah.
What do you think 80-20 means?
Do you know what he might as well say? He might as well say, don't want no part of this fight. He might as well say that.
Bingo.
Because that's when people start doing that, then they just don't want no part of it. Look, say what you like about Wilder and Fury, whether you like them or not. They got in that fucking negotiation room, signed the deal within an hour, 50-50, all the way down the middle on everything. Both guys are happy. Job done. We get 2 fights. When fighters start to think, oh, well, I want a bit 5% more than them because I think I've done a little bit more than I'm worth it and I'll bring these numbers. Mate, that's the problem with boxers these days. They just don't want to. Why are you always worried about what the next man's getting? Just say what you want. If they come up with the goods, then just take it. It doesn't matter whether he's getting 50 million.
Yeah, but you're right on the money.
You want, take the fucking fight, but it's just egos. I mean, like, little bitches as well. A lot of these fighters. I mean, we talk about AJ fans being bitches. Fighters are not far off some of these. Like pulling out deals over 5%, or who comes in the ring last and stuff. What gloves are being worn. I mean, who does Floyd Mayweather think he is by telling Marcus McDonough what gloves he can wear and stuff?
That prolonged his career, without a doubt. He never let people wear punches gloves.
Boxing should be able to. They should be able to go in there with what trainer they want, what gloves they want, and whatever money they ask for. If it gets accepted, they should take it, not worry about what the other guy's getting. But they're just too.
Dude, I used to be a Floyd fan till he started that shit. That pissed me off so bad when he was doing that. When you start telling fighters that they can't wear, fucking puncher's gloves. I mean, Madonna wore those his whole career. Some guys just don't break their hands. They can get away with the horsehair. I mean, there is a big difference getting punched with those too. And Floyd knew it. Floyd was like, nah, you ain't hitting me with those fucking things. Wear these big pillow gloves.
But the thing is, though, all it did really is harm Floyd's legacy, because Floyd, he's done great things in boxing. Say what you like about him, he's done great things, and he's a world-class fighter, one of the best. but I think his legacy is tarnished a little bit because of it. Because when you speak to a lot of people, they always say, "Well, he cherry picked. He had everything go his way. You know, even the gloves." I mean, look, steroid testing as well. He used to test these opponents were getting tested like 3 times a fucking week, 4 times a week, sometimes apparently.
And he was getting an IV. He
Yeah,
got an IV the night
sorry.
before fucking, was it Pacquiao?
Yeah,
The
it
night
was
before
Pacquiao, right?
got an IV. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, if somebody said, Jimmy, here's your options, and I've done it all, so I know physically what it does to me. You can do steroids as much as you want going into this fight. Or the night before, you get to take in a fucking couple of bags of saline. I'd be like, are you kidding me? That's like, people have no idea how fucking much of an advantage that is. And he should have been disqualified, fined. Oh my God, the fact that he got away with that is insane.
Jimmy, I just wanted to ask you something, because there was a comment made on my video about Joshua fans and stuff. And the guy made a comment about Fury being on steroids and stuff. And I mentioned, Josh, what's your opinion? Because I know you know a lot more about me than me. Would you look at Anthony Joshua and say that is a guy that's used steroids? Or do you reckon that's natural?
But he's a mesomorph body style, meaning he's got very round muscle bellies. He's got small joints. So he's one of those dudes who's always going to look muscular. You know what I'm saying? The one thing that makes me think he might have fucked with him at one point was the thickness of his traps. That's very hard to get natural. And for someone who's not a bodybuilder to have them that thick, it's usually a sign, not a definite. Some guys, you could just be a fucking physical freak. I don't see any HGH injections on his belly, and his other signs that I don't see. So, no, I cannot, say he was. I can say there's some signs that make me think he might have, but by no means, I wouldn't fucking go to court and swear on it.
No, of course not. The evidence is not there. You can't call a man guilty
without the evidence,
sort of thing. But
exactly.
Look, I know I said it on the video because I look at Joshua and I believe he is, and that doesn't mean the other guys. Fury's obviously been on it as well. Wilder, they're all on it. Trust me, they're doing something. Joshua gets a lot of second wins, doesn't he? He'd be out on his feet, and then all of a sudden he's fucking Aaron Pryor. I mean, that's the benefit of steroids. Yeah,
a lot of people think it's strength. Yeah, exactly. It's recovery. That's what it helps.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, let's get real quick.
Even if he is, I ain't got a problem with that. Like I said, I don't care to. They should all be allowed to do it for me because then the cheats are not going to get an advantage, are they?
Yeah, man. I mean, listen. I think we've been on about that the steroids. I mean, yeah. If everybody were on the same playing field, it would be fantastic. But unfortunately, we've got guys that they work day jobs and they can't afford some of the higher level stuff. So yeah, it's unfair. But just real quick, guys, because I want to get your opinion on the sticking to the Ortiz fight. I was on the chat last night on Thunderdome, who, by the way, I just saw him here on the chat. Shout out to Thunderdome. And I was looking at the chat. I was on the chat looking through the comments, and a lot of people the majority feel after what Ortiz did last night that he would beat Terence Crawford. Now I'm looking at the chat here, and I see a couple of people saying, no, he's not ready for Crawford. If that fight happens, which I don't know if Crawford would want it or whatever. He was shaking his head there in the crowd last night, and I don't know if he was shaking his head almost if to say no, it's not going to happen, or no, you're not going to get to me. But whatever happens, Ortiz certainly showed he's an offensive machine. But I'll tell you one thing: the area around his eyes and his forehead was very red. And I pointed that out in the chat, and one guy who was an Ortiz fan said, well, he was in a fight. What'd you expect? Yeah, but we'd never seen him. We'd never seen him like that before. And I think, Jimmy, like you said, he's got that peekaboo defense. And I have to wonder what would happen if he faces a guy who can take his shots. Because,
BDA, the reason why he was scratched up like that, too, it's not just a peekaboo. Like you can what's called holding your earlobes, like, you know what I mean, like phone to your head defense, where you're kind of keeping your hands more to the side. See what he does? He opens his palms up to his face. What happens when you block a punch with your hand and it catches the back of your hand, those laces scrape up your face. Actually, pretty good too. So that's the reason why he had all those scrapes on his face, because he was scratching himself with his laces.
Right.
So the thing is, though, Ortiz has a chance in this fight. I'd be picking Crawford. I think Crawford's just a bit too seasoned for him. But Ortiz has a chance in this because Crawford he's known for hanging around too long when he should be rolling out of there, swinging wide shots, getting dragged into wars. there's a chance if he does that, then Ortiz could land one. But when you break down the skills and stuff, and obviously the experience, Crawford's a tough man to beat. I mean, a real tough man to beat. This Ortiz is just a young prospect, if anything. He's not really fought. Maurice Hooker's
a contender, right?
Yeah, contender. Then that's the word you're looking at. Maurice Hooker, he's a good fighter, but not even the best at 140. So, we have to calm down a little bit. Crawford's a pound for pound fighter, top 3 in most people's eyes. So, to beat him, you're going to have to be, like I said, a real fit, in shape Errol Spence. That sort of fighter, is going to be the guy that could probably trouble Crawford. Right now, Ortiz has got a bit of work to do.
And what I'd like to see more from Ortiz is cutting the ring off. A few times he was following Hooker in a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just little things you learn. You know what I mean? Cut the ring off a little better instead of chasing him. But because Crawford switches from southpaw, back and forth orthodox seamlessly, very hard to trap him. You know what I mean? He's not going to usually get his back against the ropes. He'd be too smart to let that happen with Ortiz. He'd just stick him from afar. He would pick him off. Right now, I agree. I think Crawford would beat him. Yeah. I think he'd beat him on points. But, that's why a kid needs to see more craft. He needs to see kids with different angles.
I was going to say something here. Thunderdome wrote the quote from Cos D'Amato. He says, confidence will often overcome genius. That's what I wanted to say, too, about the fight. From Vergil Ortiz, it's refreshing to see a young guy coming in here. He's still hungry. He hasn't tasted the payday of a Crawford or a Spence. So he's not giving us that diva behavior that we're seeing from both those guys, or one guy, because again, depends on which version you're hearing. So it's refreshing to see Ortiz coming in here, and you can tell he's hungry for that big fight. But again, like the discussion is he ready for even a guy like Crawford, even though Crawford has regressed a little bit? My thinking is that I would still favor Crawford just because we've seen him come back from hard fights and when things aren't going his way. But I certainly understand the stylistic matchup in there that could favor Ortiz. Let me get Recognize in on this. Recognize, you there?
Yes, sir.
What did you think about Ortiz, his performance? Because now we got a lot of people saying that he would actually beat Crawford. I still think it's difficult to tell as of right now. What do you think?
I don't think he beats Crawford right now. He did look good yesterday. He made a few mistakes, which is expected. Maurice Hooker is a good fighter. He's gamed. He fought as tough as he could, and it wasn't good enough. He got stopped. But I don't think he's ready right now. I could see him ready in maybe a year or two, a couple of fights. A couple of more fights from now. I could see where. Don't get me wrong. He'll give him a problem now. But I think the problems will come, relatively early in the fight, where if Crawford's not out of there, which I wouldn't expect him to be, I think Crawford just picks him apart later on in the fight, maybe even stops him or just beats him on points, teach him like a boxing lesson. But I don't think I like Vergil Ortiz. I do think I like his fighting spirit where he's like, I want to fight now. Whether he's ready or not. If I had to be honest, I don't think he's ready at this moment. I think he loses those kind of fights.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Because again, I was on Thunderdome's chat last night, and I did ask him the question, like, if Crawford fights Ortiz, do you think he fights him backing up, or does he go to war the way he did with Cavaliuskas? And Thunderdome said that he thinks he would try to box the way he did with Postal. What do you guys think? Do you think Crawford, if that fight ever happens, do you think he decides to box around Ortiz, or do you think he actually goes blow for blow in there?
I think he would go blow for blow.
Really?
He'll lose I think he'll lose in like the first couple of rounds against Ortiz.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think he would lose the first couple of rounds. Then Crawford will make the, he'll switch stance, start winning the battle, the stand, the exchanges. He'll start winning those, and look, this is just speculation, but from what I saw, I think that he got hit with some good shots, and Jimmy said it best. He kind of attacks you on a straight line. I think Crawford is is good enough, still good enough to take advantage of that and work it to his advantage where he's hurting, Vergil Ortiz. He's actually hurting him, backing him up as the fight goes on in the second half of the fight. And like I said, even possibly stop him. But if they make it, I'll be happy. Be happy to see that fight.
But it's interesting. It's like Bucho said. Why it's insane in a way that we're talking about this fight, and we've sort of given up on Spence Crawford, which is the fight to make at welterweight. It's just these two guys. I don't know what's going on.
Crawford is giving up on that fight. Seems like Crawford's giving up on that fight. In other words, I guess he finds the negotiations to be frustrating. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, Errol Spence was there. I know he's from Dallas. Who knows why he was there? I think that fight's going to happen. They're just
last week. Errol Spence says no longer 60-40. He thinks it should be more like 70-30 or 80-20.
Was he? Did he really say that though?
And like Stu, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He said it on it. I watched the Instagram. He said it with a girl. I don't know if it's his wife, but he absolutely said it. So I don't know. Like Stu said, but what I took of that, he might as well have said, yes, I don't want to fight Terence Crawford. That's what saying 80-20 says.
What?
I think he was trolling him, and it was a stupid troll to say 80-20.
But it's an insulting thing, too. It's like, good fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, to come out and say that, again, this has been going on 2 years. As far as I'm concerned, that fight has already lost viewers. Like, that fight would have been more popular a year ago. It's starting to lose its luster. And Errol Spence, there's nothing even in the docket for him right now, right? Is there? No, Ugas. Who I like Ugas. I mean, that could be if that kid ties it all in that night, but I know we're not on that. But so yeah, no, Spence, and it might not even be Spence doesn't want to fight him. I think Al Haymon doesn't want any of them to leave the PBC to fight anywhere else because he doesn't get control of the money.
Because why would these fighters be afraid to make money? That doesn't make no sense.
He would be making more money than anything he came close to with that fight. So what would be the reason? And I think it's because if he did, it would have to be a shared thing. And as long as he fights, if he fights, keeps feeding them PBC retreads, he gets paid 15% on both fighters, plus a cut of the fucking proceeds, the gate, everything. And there's a reason why he's not putting in any big fights in the pandemic, because he needs the gate. Because he's not a promoter, he's an advisor, and there's no fucking piggy bank over at the PBC.
Well, look at the Charlos. They fought in September, man. The Charlos fought in September.
They haven't 50, honestly. They should just 50-50 straight down the middle.
They're not going to do that, man. Come on.
To me, there's no bigger star. I don't see Spence as a bigger star than Crawford.
Well, you know what it is, though? It's the problem is Crawford, when he did his pay-per-views, we're always talking about Crawford's shitty pay-per-view numbers, but look who he was fighting, man. He was fighting a Shotgun and Postal before that. So it's not like, that's why I would have liked to have seen him fight Porter, and if it would have been pay-per-view, see what happened there, what type of numbers. But, I mean, let's face the fact. Spence fought Mikey Garcia, a Mexican with a big following, or relatively big following, and then Porter. And then he did what? 300,000, 400,000 views. That's what Barrera and Morales were doing in 2004.
They dropped by 50% every time. I mean, they dropped by 50,000 each fight too. His last fight was 100,000 less than his fight with Nicky Garcia. So a real pay-per-view star, their numbers don't drop, especially when you're fighting supposedly a bigger town. Remember, his highest payday, his pay-per-view, was against a guy nobody thought had a chance to win. Right? Who threw more punches at the ceiling than he did at him. So his next fight were fucking fights that he was supposed to win, better competitions, all the things that would tend in any normal way would have led to more pay-per-views. So that tells you that Nicky Garcia was every bit carrying that pay-per-view as Spence. And the fact that his last pay-per-view was 100,000 less than against, that's not a good sign. You don't go backwards.
That's a good point, man. Yeah. Yeah, people say, well, the pandemic. Yeah, okay, but shouldn't that mean more pay-per-views because more people are at home? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, man. It's
exactly. But that was before the pandemic when he fought on that pay-per-view, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was full crowd. He had full access to a crowd. It's just like I don't know what I've said, but same thing. I just saw a thread before I got here about that.
I wanted to say something about the PBC. That things aren't looking good for the PBC. We've said it before, but I mean, think about it. Spence, they say he's going to fight Ugas. On which platform is that going to be? Is that going to be Showtime? Is that going to be Showtime pay-per-view? Look at the Charlos. They last fought in September. We haven't heard a peep about them. They haven't fought yet. It's been 5-6 months. So yeah, if you're Spence, even that it doesn't look good for him either, and he's one of the big PBC stars.
Well, it's definite a pay-per-view. In fact, I'm hearing more and more that even the fucking Davis fight, he's fighting a kid nobody even knows of. Although I'm hearing more and more too that he's definitely going to want this kid to get off 140, come down to like 137 or whatever. He's going to try to, or come down off his weight, which is because I think he's starting to realize, maybe looking at a video, like this kid won't be a walkthrough because he's so much bigger. You know what I mean? So, but that's going to be a pay-per-view. Ruiz, dude, the fact that Ruiz, right there, anybody sticking up for the PBC, what do you say? How do you defend fucking Ruiz against Areola as a pay-per-view? That's an insult. If that was happening in my backyard, I'd burn my fucking house down.
No. Hey, how many pay-per-view buys? How many pay-per-view buys do you think that one does? Areola versus Ruiz.
A couple of hundred, maybe. It'll be 100% Mexican based.
That's probably Andy Ruiz's family.
Yeah, it'll be Mexican Americans. And what they're not going to do, though, they won't release it because they only release the American. And I think here in America, I don't think it sells more than 100,000. But if you added up the Mexican buys and whatnot,
out of that 100,000, it'd be like 75% Mexicans that buy that fight.
That's Mexican Americans, absolutely.
Just imagine, right? Thinking it's a good idea to pay for that. Oh, I just don't get it.
Yeah, you have to be drunk.
There has to be. I don't care how much you like boxing. There has to be a limit to what you're spending your money on. But the thing is, if you keep paying for trash, they'll keep feeding it to you. It's like you go to a restaurant, and if you go to a restaurant and the food's trash, they'll keep serving you that trash food.
What also tells you is that they don't have a platform. They have nowhere to put it on. Showtime, I guarantee, when they talked about that fight, not only wouldn't have Showtime taken that as a pay-per-view, I'm surprised. They wouldn't have put up any money for it. So he had to think about it. So he obviously went to Fox, and I think their contract's ending with them anyways. And I'm sure Steven Espinoza said, "No, I'm not paying that fucking fighters." Because remember, they're still pissed that they lost so much money in that Brazil fight. They lost over $10 million in that Brazil fight against Wilder Brazil.
Well, what did I expect? This is the thing.
The Wilder Ortiz lost $15,565,000. I just read a Thomas Hauser article. Crazy money.
Look, this can only go on for so long, and don't be surprised if these fighters, right, keep demanding these sort of fees. Then don't be surprised where TV stations start pulling out left, right, and centre. You know, I mean, Sky can't even afford to put on a half decent fight without it being pay-per-view now. Right, so it's just not going to last forever because these fighters are demanding too much. So it's going to get to the stage where there's going to be no one around to fucking pay these fighters. Then what? That's what
it's going to end up. It's going to be everybody will be individual handling. It'll be basically a pay to fight. It'll be like YouTube fights. But you know, like in order to get on certain YouTube channels, you have to be a paying customer, like Mud Club. It'll get. This sport will devolve into that, where you have to buy certain fucking fighters' channels to get to see them fight. It's literally going in that direction.
Greed has caused this. Look, I've got no problem with fighters earning good money. It's a fucking tough sport, and it's a tough trade.
But not at the price of the sport.
But the thing is, they're overpricing themselves. They're overvaluing themselves. A lot of them think they're a lot better than they are, and got a lot more fans than they think, and they haven't. You know, these guys are not bringing much to the table when it comes to revenue. These TV stations are not in it for charity. They want returns. And they're not getting
Stu, you know the reason why people say, how come like Marvin Hagley lived right up here in New Hampshire? Why didn't he do more TV? Why didn't he do more because he's popular. Why didn't he do more commentary or whatever? Because he's not a liar. And the shit he said, I mean, he would straight up say, man, these guys today are a joke.
He wasn't politically correct.
Yeah, he would say, this is a joke pay-per-view. Because remember, that motherfucker had to wait 3 years. Like Steve said, they held him out from getting a title because he wouldn't work with the mob. So he went up the hard way, and he fought a lot of tough dudes to get there, right? And now he sees these guys like Plant, fights a fucking bevy of no-hopers, gets a title, and then fights and, keeps fighting bum after bum until he gets his big money. It's not a winning strategy for the fans. It might be a winning strategy for the fighters, but it's going to drive the sport into the toilet.
Yeah, but the thing is, once the fans turn off, there is no money for the fighters. Because, like I said, these TV stations are not going to continue to lose 15 million every time they put a fight on.
That's right, man. That's right. And here's the other thing, man.
Do you know what they could do with fucking 15 million? That's a lot of money.
And you know how you can prove that Fox lost money on that fucking PBC deal, or it was throwaway or whatever? Every single PBC card on Saturday night primetime, not one of them fucking did better than the other three major networks. They always finish dead last, and usually dead last in the ratings. Like, put it this way. People are, I was just read about Wilder's popularity, more popular than Fury, not according to Google Trends here in the United States, but also on top of that, when he fought the Polish kid, in Madison, at Barclays, the Spilka. Okay. He did less than 500,000 fucking views on a Fox. He actually lost in the ratings to men's curling.
Oh, jeez, Louise, that's insane. That's shameful, man. That is absolutely shameful. Just want to say real quick to shout out to Iceman for his contribution with the super chat. Says keep it up. I want to tell you something else too about shout out to Iceman for his contribution. Really appreciate it. I want to say something about the Arreola Ruiz pay-per-view. I'm way past the time in my life where I would buy everything just to say, oh yeah, I've watched it all. Like, to keep up with everything boxing. I don't do that anymore, man. Like Steve Kim said, you don't have to watch everything now. For what? Just to because you're a hardcore boxing fans? Nah, you can do other more productive things with your time than boxing. Boxing
wait 7 hours and watch it on YouTube.
But that's But what I'm saying is, if you're watching fights not because you want to fight them, but just because you feel like you have to, then at that point it's no longer enjoyable. Especially if it's a shit fight that you have to pay for.
This is my problem, BDA. I got to the stage where I was staying up to watch fights for the sake of breaking it down for the show and stuff, and it was making me like fucking tired when I was going to work. I was fucking feeling horrible all week, staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning.
Probably making you moody as fuck.
But you sack about 10 people a week, don't you? When you're like that, right? And you just feel like shit. And what for? For a mismatch.
Exactly.
And so like you said, you start losing a bit of love for the sport, like I have, and that's why it's unheard of me missing all these fights that I have recently. But I've been going out doing things and enjoying myself. Do you know what I mean? And I'd rather do that than watch Ruiz v Arreola. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't care what's the upside of, like, when you watch a fight, you go, okay, why am I watching it for? If there's something like, if you watch, for example, last night's fight between Ortiz and Hooker, it's an interesting fight because Hooker came prepared. You knew he was gonna go there with a little bit of punching power, and there's a lot of upside on Ortiz. So it's an investment. It's an enjoyable fight to watch. On top of that, but if it's Ortiz against some guy that has no shot at beating him, you're thinking, what am I actually watching here? What am I doing? Just watching a mismatch, which I already know what's going to happen. I mean, come on. And by the way, fellas, we've got a phone call. Let's go to 323. 323, you're on the air. 323, what's on your mind?
Guess who's back?
Oh, wait a minute. Don't tell me, Steve.
I was about 30 seconds from hanging up. This was going to go Crawford Spence for me, but I'm glad I'm here.
Hey, thanks for calling in,
guys,
man.
Yeah, guys, I've been doing some stuff here on a lazy Sunday afternoon here in beautiful Southern California, just listening to your show, enjoying what you're saying. And just wanted to mention one thing. It's something that I brought up on the 3 knockdown rule in the past. My theory as to why Spence Crawford is not happening, I think a lot of it, gentlemen, is tied into the fact that the Fury-Wilder rematch last year, which was a co-promotion, and they did a great job of marketing it on both ends from Fox and ESPN, and I thought, wow, this is the way it could work. There's a co-promotion. People are reaching across the aisle. There's real cooperation. There's an incredible synergy, and it felt like, hey, this could be the new way. Maybe these other fights can happen as long as people are willing to compromise and chop up the money. But while the promotion was good, the thing that was really problematic is that pay-per-view didn't even really reach 1 million buys. And I'm not so sure anyone outside the two fighters made money. And so once that happened, and then the losing side has some very harsh feelings because they end up with a guy that doesn't have the heavyweight title, If that fight does 2 million buys, or let's say 1.5, I think Al Haymon and Bob Arum say, hey, we could do this a lot and always make money together. But once that pay-per-view number fell flat, I think at least one side said, is this really worth it? Why don't we just keep everything in-house? That's my theory.
And
That's a good point.
And that's probably as amplified by the whole pandemic thing, right?
That certainly didn't help. And another thing, Bucho, is I look at this fight, and here's the thing that gets me. And look, I actually believe Errol Spence is the A side. He deserves a higher cut. Now, I don't think it's 70-30. It's probably closer to 60-40 to 55-45. But at the same time, with Terence Crawford, he is not blameless. He's got to be willing to compromise. If he is standing on that hill saying it's 50-50 or bust, well, I hate to tell you, it's bust. Because if you go by the numbers, which some of them have been very inflated, what's been reported, but the people behind the scenes, they know the real numbers, so they should negotiate off of that. Someone has to tell Terence, why don't we get what we want in the rematch after you beat Errol in the first fight? It's very similar to that Holyfield story I told you guys last week when he didn't think he was getting treated fairly by Don King in the first go-around with Evander Holyfield, but his attorney, Jim Thomas, said, look, to get what you want, we're going to have to beat him in the first fight. Don't negotiate your way out of this. And I think it's sad, personally, guys, that the Spence-Crawford fight or non-fight is the modern-day Lennox Lewis Riddick Bowe scenario, and it really is, I think, symbolic of some of the issues facing boxing today. I think it's hopeless. I don't think that fight's going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. And again, that's my theory, that with Wilder Fury not doing as well as they hoped on pay-per-view, it had an adverse effect on fights like Crawford Spence.
Yeah. I totally agree with Steve, and this is, I was going to get onto that fight, Wilder Fury. Now, I thought the American media got behind Wilder Fury too. I thought they did a great job building it up. They just couldn't have done a better job for me. Everything was put in place for this fight to make good numbers, and unfortunately, the numbers didn't. They didn't really. Well, let's just say this: they were not as big as I thought they'd be. And like I said, the amount of money that Wilder and Fury were getting, I'm not sure many people made too much money out of that. And there was a lot of effort putting into that build-up, and I just felt yet again boxing took another blow for me, because there's only so much these media companies can put everything into a fight to build it up, and it's still not bringing them money back. And this is the problem with boxers. Boxers need to start taking pay cuts before the sport dies. I made an analogy the other day about the Italian Serie A, when they were paying ridiculous money for footballers, paying them stupid money every week. Now look at Serie A. I mean, it's just it's a graveyard.
Stu, you make a good point. And the other issue is, look, there's a big difference between how many people paid for a fight and then actually watched it. And this has been the elephant in the room with the industry for a very long time. And I thought it was puzzling, because I would do stories on this when I was at Max Boxing, UCN Live, and most recently ESPN. When you talk to these people, they would almost act as if they didn't know what illegal streaming was, that if they didn't bring it up, that the boogeyman wouldn't appear. If you actually look at any fight that takes place, and I specifically recall Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, which was actually on regular ESPN. The next day, I wanted to review something, and I had to send something out. On YouTube, there were streams of that complete fight that had over 1 million views, and that was the next morning. So, trust me, boxing is still very, very popular. I actually think more people are watching it than ever. It's just there's more ways to actually lift it for free. You don't need that mythical black box, as we did in the 80s.
Those are the best, Steve.
Fighters have got to understand that, though, because for every stream that people can find, that's less money going into the network's pockets. So, and look, they're not in this for charity. This is what I'm saying. I could see boxing being in a real bad place in 3 years' time if some of these fighters don't sort of like take a pay cut, shall we say, because there's COVID has killed a lot of industries. The boxing's not immune to this. Go ahead, Steve.
In my view, that what needs to happen, and I've suggested this, and people say it's great, the problem is you're not going to get the fighters involved. work off a percentage. That if a fight is worth $10 million, go off percentages, just like they did in the old days. And many times, but what's happened is a lot of fighters have gotten these guaranteed contracts with certain minimums. So even if a fight is only worth, let's say, $3 million, and a guy has a contract that says, hey, my minimum per fight is $4 million, this is where you start to get the issue. There was a time where you'd have a much lower minimum, but guys were basically working off the gate and whatever television money came in and ancillary income. And in my view, here's the problem with Spence Crawford. I'm not so sure that fight even breaks 500,000. And I don't understand these Errol Spence fans acting as if somehow he's the Texas version of Floyd Mayweather. His pay-per-views have never broken 400,000. I mean, that's like a girl who's really a 6 or 7 acting like she's a dime piece. Hey, let's have some reality here.
And Steve, right? What's up, Steve? It's Jimmy, brother. Hey, and I was going to say, Steve, too, right? It doesn't bode well for Spence's team, the fact that every pay-per-view since his best has gone down. And why? And I also wanted to ask you, Steve, what would be the purpose of Fox and Showtime now, or PBC, not allowing the provider to let the public know the numbers sold? Why would they do that?
That's a great question. I think a lot of it is, I think it's embarrassment. I think this is such a game of propaganda that, look, I remember there was a time that when HBO would do a pay-per-view by Wednesday or Thursday, and this is how long I've been around, you'd get a fax. And the fax machine would be revving with this big, long announcement of we did 1.2 million buys, representing $58 million worth of revenue. Nowadays, these numbers are leaked to select sources for some reason. I actually don't know if there is a pay-per-view industry anymore, in my view, because of the piracy. They've never really figured that out. I mean, guys, one of the first events I ever covered was in 1996. It was in June, where Bob Arum decided, I'm sick of the piracy with these black boxes. I'm going to go back to closed circuit for Chavez De La Hoya 1, if you remember. There really was no widespread pay-per-view. And he thought, okay, at least now it can't be pirated. But there was an issue, and Bob had one of the greatest quotes. This is on the Mount Rushmore of Bob Arum quotes. He actually said, because someone asked him, how did that closed circuit work out? He goes, I did great on the West Coast. I did great through Texas. I ran east of the Mississippi. I ran out of Mexicans, and I died.
Oh.
That's what happened.
Jeez.
So he never went back to the circuit because he realized at certain points people aren't going to, people are used to doing pay-per-view. So, I mean, I don't know how you fix it, but I do think that if a fight is worth $1 million, $2 million, $15 million, $20 million, $30 million, let the guys get rewarded and pay them off of a percentage. That's the way it was done for years.
Steve. Exactly, Steve. I mean, they're hitting these fighters with these big paychecks, and they're not thinking it over. I mean, how can you pay someone like Wilder all that sort of money when he brings barely anything back to you? I mean, it's just suicidal when it comes to running a business, And I've got a feeling that I've got a feeling Dubai, the Arabs are going to start taking all the big fights over there. These are the guys that are going to be able to pay them. They're the only guys that are going to be able to pay them soon. Trust me. And I've got a feeling we're going to lose a lot of big fights in the States, in the UK, to the Arabs. We've lost Joshua and Fury to the Arabs. I mean, that fight should have been in Wembley Stadium. You telling me them guys couldn't just take a little pay cut so the British fans could watch that fight after the British fans put them where they were?
It's a money grab. Look, that's a money grab. It is what it is, and I don't want to hear that this is going to grow the sport. No, it's not. It's going to grow the pocketbook of about 5 or 6 people in the industry. But if you really wanted to grow the sport, you're right. You would have that in Wembley Stadium and let the actual fans participate. You cannot have an event, in my view, and maybe I'm just an old-timer, where 99% of the loyal fans that you continually depend on to buy tickets and buy pay-per-view and to view in and to tell, hey, you're not even allowed to be invited to the dance. There's something very wrong with that. And this is
it's a losing recipe. And plus, you would have to, because if they fight in Saudi Arabia, what time do you see it over there in the West Coast, Steve?
That hasn't been figured out yet. And look, until there's a signed deal with a date and a location, let's not pencil that in yet. I hate to be the wet blanket in this room, but until I see a real press release from both parties, I'm not holding my breath because I have no faith in this process. And by the way, guys, Jim, how big of a fight is it when one guy hasn't fought since last February and the other guy's only fought once in the last 14 months? How big of a fight is it? Seriously.
Agreed.
True.
I totally agree. I think there's going to be a lot of rust in that fight. That's why I'm giving AJ a chance.
That's why I'm shocked they're not both taking a warm-up first. I'm really surprised. I'd almost if I was Fury, I'd want one, especially with Fury.
It's like Steve said, Jimmy, money grab. This is a money grab. This ain't about growing boxing in the UK. This event in the UK would have been like a World Cup in England. Trust me, this event would have been huge. It would have been an occasion. Even fights like this, even the girls, even the chicks get together and watch these sort of fights, order the fights and get together.
Yeah.
This is a big occasion in the UK, and they took it from us. Do you know what I mean? For the sake of a few mil.
Dana White is absolutely correct. I know people hate Dana for whatever reason. He's a dictator. He runs a monopoly. All that is true. It doesn't make him necessarily incorrect on everything he says. When he says boxing treats everything as a going out of business clearance sale, where they squeeze every last dollar at the expense of investing into the future, that's a prime example. It's a prime example right there.
Hey, but
right
Steve,
there.
when we're talking about some of the positives that could come out of boxing or a way to fix it, I remember you always used to say that back when HBO and Showtime were competing against each other, you used to quote the former Showtime head of sports, I believe, or of boxing, who said that, hey, if ESPN ever gets into the mix here, they're going to be a real problem for us. Now ESPN is in the business, and they've got a solid budget to work with Top Rank. What can be done with them to sort of improve this television situation of making big fights?
Well, by the way, that head was Jay Larkin, the dearly departed Jay Larkin. Taught me a lot about the business. God rest his soul. And he basically said, Steve, HBO or no one else is really my competition. The one we're afraid of is ESPN. But the caveat is, and I'm not saying that they're a problem, but ESPN is also locked into an exclusive deal with Top Rank. Now, imagine if they actually said, we're going to be in boxing, but we're not going to be in business with a promoter. We're going to select fights and bid on certain fights. And let's say they acted like Triller. Where would the game? Because I really believe it's not the sanctioning body that's the problem. I don't think promoters are the problem. None of them are perfect. But when you have exclusive network contracts that tie in fighters to networks, and then the promoters have a pressure to deliver content to their networks, and they can't dare have their A-sides go to the other side of the street and somehow lose, that creates a more fractured business than anything else. And I don't know how you get around that. I really wish networks would just say, you know what, we're in the business of boxing, not in the business of ABCD promotional firm. But I don't know if that's ever really possible.
But is the reason why they... Oh, go ahead, Regan, sir.
I'm sorry. I was gonna because he was talking about earlier. He was talking about how they don't announce the numbers, and it's like they leak it out to certain media outlets. So it kind of reminded me of something that happened in the Mike Tyson Lennox Lewis fight, and that was a joint broadcast, right? Because you had they had. Mike was in Showtime and Lennox Lewis was on HBO. And I remember, so the deal was whoever wins the fight, right, which Lennox Lewis ended up winning, HBO gets to show the rebroadcast of the fight. So I remember watching it, and Jim Lampley gave this excellent breakdown, right? So it's one of these Jim Lampley shows on HBO, and he gave the breakdown of how much the fight generated and the breakdown of the money between Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis. And it was the numbers was huge, but he talked about freely on TV for everybody to see how much money they generated. And you can do your own math and see that everybody got paid off. You see how freely they were to just announce and give the breakdown of the numbers. I don't know if you guys remember that broadcast. But Jim Lampley basically breaks it down how much money both fighters got and how much money the fight generated with pay-per-views, live gates, and all that.
I wonder if it's on YouTube. Maybe we could find. Was that in the actual fight? You mean the actual fight broadcast, or was that?
No, the week after the fight.
Oh,
right?
okay.
The week after the fight, so it gets rebroadcast on HBO. Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson. So Lennox Lewis wins. So HBO has the rights to the rebroadcast, and Jim Lampley gives an excellent breakdown of the money situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the money was good, in other words. So there was nothing to feel, ashamed of, where we don't see that today. And I thought it just reminded me of that when Steve Kim brought up like how they leak out these numbers to certain outlets.
Well, and the person they leaked that out to, the one who always is, that's the, Mike Coppinger there. And let's be honest, he also, remember the Inside the PBC with Mike Coppinger, And put it this way, when you see an article, Mike wrote an article after the Fury took a big, Wilder Ortiz they took a bath on that. But he actually said in his headline, it looks like Fury is a better B-side than Ortiz, but completely obfuscating any blame on Fury. Like Wilder had nothing to do with the big drop in numbers. It was because Fury was the better B-side. So yeah, what do you expect?
Yeah,
look, how can you expect a Cuban? How can you expect a Cuban to carry a card in America against American? Come on, man.
Yeah, Jimmy, you mentioned Spence's declining numbers. I believe that they're going to announce the Ugas fight soon. Ugas has earned his place. I like Ugas. I thought he beat Sean Porter in March of 2020 or 19. I've lost my track, but I remember being there at StubHub Center. Yeah, and really good boxer. I think he eventually gets worn down late. It's a good fight, but you're right. That's another fight. I believe this trend will continue because both Crawford and Spence, there's a real backlash against both of them from the hardcore fan. And that's the type of card, it's going to be about the hardcore. There's going to be no general or casual interest in that in America, in my view. So at that point, now you have an issue. Errol Spence can't act like he's Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather of 2010, 11, and 12, saying, well, I do great pay-per-view numbers when it's obvious that there's a certain trend developing. How does he work around that argument?
Wow, that'll be 4 in a row then, right? That'll be the 4th pay-per-view in a row. The number's gone down. The thing is Bob has his sources. People have sources, and that's what I usually go by because I just believe because they always start out like it always starts out the night of the fight or the next morning. It's 275, but could hit 350. But by the end of the week, that 350 is now they set it enough. That's the number,
right?
An
industry source told me that's been in this business for about 30 years. He said, Steve, we have always inflated pay-per-view numbers, but they are never more inflated than they are today.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, wow,
totally agree.
A very neutral source.
Totally agree. I mean, look,
and Jimmy,
if they're telling you it's 200,000, take 50,000 off of that, if not more.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, because they have to do that because obviously, if you're trying to build a fighter up and you're bringing out his numbers and they suck, it doesn't look good at this fighter you're trying to build up, does it? So they have to try and make it look like he's a bit more important than he really is. But boxing is, trust me, I'm telling you now, boxing is on a slow decline. It might look like it's growing on the outside, but on the inside is eating himself from within. And it's a lot to do with greed, a lot to do with people being in boxing that have got no business in it, whether it's judges that have never been in a fight, whether it's promoters that don't really know what they're doing, trainers that these days, like I said, to be a trainer, just smoke a cigar and wear a gold chain. You're a trainer these days. I mean, this is where we are with boxing. It's the only sport in the world where you don't have to fight the best. Barcelona can't say, well, we don't want to play Man City. We're not playing them this year. If they're drawn to play them, they have to play them. Boxers are not like that. They pick and choose, demand money that they're not worth. I mean, I'm telling you now, boxing is on a slow decline. And if we're not careful, it's good. Like you said, Wilder's numbers was worse than the men's curling. And anyone's watched curling, absolutely dreadful sport. How could anyone watch that over boxing? That's where we are.
Stu, there's a reason why I've just basically said I'm not covering this day to day. I'm going to be in boxing. I'm going to make money with it. I'll be involved in the sport. But there came a point where I said, what the hell am I covering? Jimmy, real quickly about the black boxes. It's real funny because in America, I don't know how it is in Britain, guys, but if you had a black box, and I actually never saw one, the only black boxes I knew of were on airplane crashes and when big fights would happen. And it was like these
Black box was pretty amazing to look at.
That was the most popular guy in the neighborhood for about a week.
Dude, my old man, God rest his soul, dude. Somebody at his job, right, where he worked at a dealership, right? He was a mechanic. He taught him how to change them, right? Dude, my father would stay up till midnight changing black boxes, $50 a pop. Put it this way, bought a summer home. You know what I mean? Up at Lake Winnipesaukee when I was a kid. He sold so many black boxes in the 80s.
Is that them black boxes? You're on about the ones that the insurance companies put in these cars these days?
No. There was cable boxes. Yeah, Steve can probably explain it.
Okay.
I had one, I must admit.
Can I ask Steve a question quickly? Steve, if this Fury Joshua fight, this Fury Joshua fight, one second, video.
Okay, go ahead.
This Fury Joshua fight, will you be making your way over to Dubai to cover that one, or is that one that you'll be doing from home?
You know, again, would I cover it? I mean, I talk about it, but I'll be honest. I've been to so many fights. Do I really want to go to the Middle East? I really don't.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked.
On my bucket list is to cover a big fight in the UK because I think you guys do it great. I love the atmosphere. I love the enthusiasm. I love the energy, the pyrotechnics, the staging, the production. But I've never said, you know what, I want to one day go to Dubai and watch boxing. It's never been on my list.
What's wrong with you? No, but Steve,
what is wrong with that? It's called common sense.
Hey, Steve, I was going to ask you too. Now, here's another thing that I find very problematic as far as the PBC stands. If they've been leaking all these numbers that I think everybody can agree are obviously inflated, that's a big part of the negotiation. Now, that's the fucking square Spence is standing on. I'm the fucking A-side. Look at my PB. You know, they throw the 6-year-old Postel at him. But now, if they do negotiation, wouldn't Haymon have to open up and truly show the numbers he did? I know if I was Crawford's lawyer, I'd say, okay, this is what you say, then show me.
Right. Jimmy, this is why I really believe that, again, Spence has sold more pay-per-views. But do I believe all the numbers that have been floated out there? No. And I can guarantee you that the top-ranked Crawford side, they more or less have the real numbers. The whole industry does. They just aren't willing to share them. I actually place more of the blame on Spence for this fight not happening, or at least negotiations commencing. But I'm not going to lie to you. When Terence said yesterday, "Oh yeah, that fight, that's a thing of the that's a terrible answer. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible answer on his end."
He doesn't have a PR person or something telling him what to say, or Crawford.
He just poo-pooed on the biggest welterweight fight in boxing.
Hey, by the way, Steve, I wanted to ask Steve something about the ESPN, real quick about ESPN. So, did the reason why they signed that exclusive deal with Top Rank, is that because they just want to dip their toes into boxing and see what happens, or is it because the executives at ESPN, they just don't know that much about boxing and they think like it's like a UFC type thing where
well, remember, if you go back all the way to the 80s when ESPN was a very young network, one of their partners, and they did shows for years and they developed a lot of good fighters, was ESPN's Top Rank Boxing. I mean, they literally did a weekly show, I believe, for about a decade. I remember watching
Tuesday Night Fights, wasn't it?
Calvin Grove, Freddie Williams, Terrence Ali, one of my favorite fighters, Dana Roston, Roger Mayweather. So they were very familiar with Bob Arum. They have a history with Top Rank. ESPN, look, they're looking for content, and boxing is relatively cheap. If you actually look at their contract, which is not, again, when you have over $80 to $90 million, that's nothing to sneeze at, but look at what they are paying for other properties like NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, and it does decent ratings per dollar. And I think they wanted it after the PBC. That didn't work out. That's another network that got upside down with Al Haymon for whatever reason. I think that they said, "Oh, we could do boxing, but we're going to need a partner that we trust and has a track record of developing fighters and creating stars and making fights." And look, do I think it's the most perfect situation being tied down to one promoter? No, because I explained that earlier. But it's just my belief, I was never told anything, that their track record with Aram and the overall reputation of Top Rank, who needed a network after HBO basically said, we're out of this business, at that point, they probably needed each other. I think it's actually been a pretty good relationship thus far. They're delivering pretty solid fights post-bubble.
Yeah. See, the problem in the UK is there's such a lot of money to be made in boxing in the UK, but Sky have started to. They're not really showing us much boxing anymore. They've cut Ringside out, the show that used to put on every week. They're not giving us the big fights anymore on a Saturday. They used to have Friday night fights as well. We used to get all the big fights in America. We're not getting them anymore. I mean, some of the big fights in America not on Sky anymore. I mean, so people are getting a bit fed up with Sky. And Adam Smith, I'm hearing, is not very happy with Eddie Hearn. I'm hearing Eddie Hearn's not going to be signing a new contract with Sky. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'm hearing that contract is coming to an end soon, and I don't think Eddie's going to be signing again with them. They're not happy with him, mate. He's not putting. I mean, look, do people pay subscription to what we want to watch? Good fights. I don't want to watch Lewis Ritson. I don't want to watch Katie Taylor for the fucking 30th time. Do you know what I mean?
No, look, I hear you. It's I don't know what's going to happen in this boxing business. I'm just glad I don't have to write about it every day. I can still kind of cover it from the periphery and have fun and hang out with you guys on a Sunday afternoon, man. But anyway, guys, I'm going to continue to listen. I got some errands to run, but keep doing your thing. You guys do a great job keeping
Steve,
the flickering
well,
light
can I just ask?
alive.
Well, Steve, I just wanted to ask you one quick question, dude. What about football, dude? You're as good as anybody. Your knowledge in that game. Would you ever think about covering that?
You know, I love football. It's the only other thing I really care about is like the Miami Hurricanes. That's the one thing I really care about other than boxing. But I like being a fan. Look, I know what I know. I'm immersed in boxing. I've invested 20 to 25 years of my life really learning it. And there's something about just going to a game and watching it on TV with friends, drinking a lot of foreign beer, getting a nice buzz, and then watching boxing at night, then actually having to cover that I love. You know, sometimes things are just fun when you're a fan. And I love football. And I keep up with it because I might be on other talk shows. Me and Mario still talk about it. But football for me is something that I always be a fan of. I'm not really interested in covering anything else. Basically, I am a one-trick pony. I'm just doing my tricks a little bit.
Somebody asked me that. That's why. Somebody just recently asked me. Think Steve wouldn't. So, all right, cool. All right, sorry, bro. I just wanted to ask you that. You have a great day, Steve.
Absolutely, guys. Look,
yeah, it's always good to have you on, Steve, man. Always bring some good insight.
Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate the call. You always enlighten us.
Thank you.
Anytime, guys. Talk to you later.
Take it easy, man. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, very enlightening. Every time Steve Kim calls in, check him out on the 3 Knockdown Rule with Mario Lopez. I still say one of the best podcasts around. And you know,
we're spoiled.
Yeah, we're a little bit.
We are. That's awesome.
It's always good to get someone insight from inside the media. He knows how it works. He knows how these fighters behave behind closed doors. A lot of it's put on for us, and we only see what the camera shows us. Where when you're there and you're seeing the true characters of some of these fighters, it's just a good insight, you know.
And before I even met him or talked to him one time, he was. I mean, I've been following this fucking game my whole life. He was by far my favorite writer because he's right on the money, the business end, the other end, and he does pick fights, man. He's good at that.
Because Steve's, like I said, a bit like you said about Marvin Hagler earlier. People like Steve, myself, Marvin Hagler, who would never get a job at the big station because it's all about being a yes boy, being a cheerleader, a fanboy. And that's what they want these days. They don't want someone that's going to tell you the truth about a fighter. You know, and this is where we are. And I mean, when you're listening to commentary, you just all you hear is one-sided commentary. The fighter that's with them, it's like the other guy's not even in there. And you see it with Sky Sports, you see it with The Zone, you see it with ESPN and Showtime and so on. It just gets cringy listening to it, and they see some like their fight will land a jab he'll get countered with a big hook or something. Yet the hook was missed. The jab was seen though. What a jab! It's just cringe. And this is what you've got to be. You've got to be a yes boy to be in media these days. Sit there and kneeling before the show starts.
Well, that's why
I like about HBO. They would cut up their fighters. If their fighters back in the day, before it was like Steve said, broke down to network against network, Lampley, man, he would rip you up if you weren't fucking performing in there. They had no problem fucking coming down on the house fighter.
They should.
Exactly.
Listen, you should want to hear someone that knows what he's talking about telling you the truth about a guy. Like, if a guy is fucking useless, then just let him tell us. Look, this guy's no good. He shouldn't be in it. Don't be saying, well, yeah, he's a seasoned pro. Journeyman, been all over the world, fought them all. Yeah, and got knocked the fuck out while he fought them.
Can you imagine?
I don't want. I just want the truth. And this is the problem with a lot of media. Cornballs, a lot of them.
Can you imagine HBO from the 90s, watching HBO in the 90s and hearing something like what Max Kellerman said during the Triple G Canelo rematch? The story of the fight, like, what are you on about, man? I don't know if somebody snuck something in his matzo balls or something, but I mean, it was disgusting that what he was going on about. But can
you imagine it in the 70s, 80s? Having Adam Smith, we'd like to apologise if you heard any swear words and you're offended. Like, get the fuck out of it to me. This is a boxing match. People are getting beat up, punched in the face. This is an alpha male sport from the streets, working classman sports, and you've got posh boys like Adam Smith, right? Sorry if you're offended if you heard a swear word. Yeah, I heard loads of swear words. I'm not offended. I'm offended by you, Adam Smith, being a little fucking snowflake. And this is the problem, man.
And what sucks too? These color commentators, a lot of them think they have to talk. Like they always, like that's when Steve calls fights. The reason why I even like when he calls fights is he goes the whole round sometimes not saying nothing. Like even Larry Merchant used to say, the best color commentator knows when not to talk. You know what I mean? Like you can destroy the action in the ring by talking over it or trying to describe your feelings. Kellerman, my thing was he would always try to lay these soliloquies out like it was going to be like everybody remember these deep, fucking angles. And he tried to do that because, Merchant could do that, right? But Merchant would do it in 15 words or less. And fucking he'll start going down these long avenues of retardedness. But yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I like the old. You just can't beat the old school commentators like Harry Carpenter and all them. And look. I miss them
sort of awesome.
Yeah, but it was a different era. But these guys, they're not really schooled in boxing. A lot of these commentators, not obviously not the ex-pros. I'm on about the commentators. These guys, they know a little bit about the sport, but they're there to just fanboy on.
Can I ask why Sergio Mora? Of all the fucking people, why Sergio Mora? I just don't understand.
Box Nation or something. I can't remember. Ashley Theophane commentating. The guy can barely string a sentence, get muttering, stuttering. I don't want to hear that.
Sergio Mora threw his last fight. I mean, he literally. Was it Mora? I'm thinking. Oh no, it was the rabbi threw his last fight. Sorry, I mixed them up sometimes. But Sergio Mora. I mean, He couldn't be any more irrelevant. It doesn't bring any juice to it. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, listen, if I may be fair here, I'm not saying. I'm speaking for myself. I wouldn't do a good job as a commentator, maybe because, like you said, Jimmy, I would be doing what you said, which is I would just be talking the whole way through like a spastic. I'd be so excited. But at least...
Yeah, that was just nerves the first couple of times. I bet you do a better job than Mora.
Well, I don't know about that, but the one thing I will say is this. At least I would be very conscious and not voice my... Because I'll give you an example. I wouldn't be biased the way... Like you said, some of these guys are cheerleaders. They're not telling you the action. They're creating a narrative, just like any other newscaster. For example, when Joshua dropped Luis in the first fight, remember what? I forget who the guy was, but he said, Joshua is a calm and poised finisher. Watch this. And I remember thinking at the time, which was a couple of seconds before Luis actually ended up dropping him, I remember thinking, why would you say that, man? It's like the guy just got dropped, okay, but you never know what's gonna happen. Why are you setting it up as if, hey, look at Joshua, this big ass monster who always gets the fin? It turned out to explode back in that commentator's face, which I think was Chris Mannix who said that. I think it was.
Well, you know what the worst part of commentators when it breaks down when you see after it takes a couple of years usually, but you pick up on it. Like as good as I think he was, man, what I didn't like about Roy Jones, he was wicked racially biased. You know what I mean? And it was so obvious. Yeah, you know what I mean? It just became very obvious. He always, there's a few of them like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to like I like Andre Ward. I don't mind Andre Ward.
No, I don't mind Andre Ward at all. I think Andre Ward does an excellent job.
Andre Ward, he's a boxing mind, isn't he? He knows the sport, and he's
a very cerebral fighter.
You know, yeah, he just breaks down a fight how I like it to be broken down. He doesn't talk too much nonsense. He's not a cheerleader. Yep. He says what he sees. That's all.
I'm glad you're saying that, dude.
Bradley, I like Bradley as well, but Bradley gets a bit. Well, he says some
last night, dude.
Bradley.
Okay, like last night, I don't know if you saw this fight last night with Better Be Off. I have it paused right there at that time because I keep rewinding because I can barely hear it. He's basically talking about the punishment this kid Brain's taken, who handled himself pretty good. This other, kid Better Be Off fought. But Better Be Off, man. When he took his shirt off, he looked like fucking I will destroy you. He looks like the dude from Rocky. Man, chiseled. But so you could tell Bradley wanted him to call the fight.
He looks
Bradley
like fucking Boyka. Doesn't he? He looks like fucking Boyka from under.
And Bradley was talking about the punishment the guy was taking, but Ward made an excellent point. Yes, he's losing on the cards. Yes, it doesn't look like he's going to win, but he's still got enough on his punches. Better Be Off has been put down before. It's too soon. And I'm saying to myself right away, I'm like, yeah, 100% agree, Ward. And Tim Bradley, as he whispers, like he says something as they started fighting again, and he tails off. I think he said, "This is crazy." And he could, I'm thinking I'm trying to make sure. I'm like, wow. So he's actually, see, he's putting way too much of his emotions into it. Like, calm the fuck down. But I'm glad you said that about Ward, because I know he's not very popular sometimes, but I agree. I think he does an excellent job.
Yeah. Probably my favourite commentator, Andre Ward, I'd say.
Yep,
and that's UK and America. I'd say Andre Ward's probably my favourite.
I tweet him that. I'd compliment him in tweets on his job, but he blocked me. So,
Oh man! Hey, listen. With Andre Ward, I've said it before. I don't like his character, but when it comes to boxing, look, Olympic gold medalist, undisputed at super middleweight, or maybe not undisputed, but certainly the best super middleweight. So yeah, you have to respect what he says. And what you said, Jimmy, about Timothy Bradley, that's one of the main criticisms I have of some commentators, especially to HBO in the later years. They tended to jump the gun. For example, when Amir Khan would fight a guy like Maidana or Garcia early on, of course he would get the he would have the advantage because he was such a quick starter and so fast. It took guys a couple of rounds to assess his hand speed. But they would always jump the guns, like, oh yeah, this is going to be over soon. Wow, Amir Khan is so great. Blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, wait till see what happens.
They're always dick riding the fucking winner. Whoever's winning the fight, those guys on HBO would start dick riding them. You're 100% right.
Bradley does he does quite a bit of dick riding. Bradley does. That's the thing that annoys me about him, because I do know Timothy Bradley. He knows the game. Obviously, he knows the sport inside out, and he is a good commentator.
He is. He does better than Mora.
He just goes into fanboy mode sometimes. It annoys me. He's seeing things that are not there, if you get what I'm saying.
And I think sometimes he's worrying too much. And as a fan, we're savages, man. If it was up to him, he'd call half these fights, too soon. Like think about that mentality. Like Mickey Ward, Arturo 1, all those type of fights wouldn't have got past the 4th round. You know what I mean? Stop it. Yeah, he's not good. So, yeah, let the guys fucking bang it out, man.
I think that is, though. Because Timothy Bradley, right, he could have boxed Provodnikov's ears off that night, made it look easy, and then went home and got an early night. But instead, he decided to go toe-to-toe, go to war with this Russian bear, just to try and prove fans wrong. And around that time, after that fight, that took a lot out of Timothy Bradley. He was slurring his words. His mouth was a little bit droopy. Honestly, that really took a lot out of him, that fight. That was a beating he shouldn't have took. And that's probably why he's like that when he sees other guys taking beatings, because he's been there through experience. And I know for a fact that I remember them times. I used to go on the Boxing Voice quite a lot during that time when Bradley fought Provodnikov. And I remember, just shows you, that's why I like Timothy Bradley, man, because the guy will fight any man and he'll go, all right, I didn't like his performance against Pacquiao.
That's a good angle, dude. I didn't even think of that. That's a good angle.
Yeah, but the guy, like I said, he went to war with Provodnikov when he could have outboxed Provodnikov easy, made that look easy and gone home and had an early night. But because he was getting a lot of stick, the Pactards fucking tortured the guy, man. They're death threats and all sorts over a fight, man. That's what I mean about boxing.
Because he got the decision? They were threatening him because he got the decision win?
Yeah.
Yes, he was. And they were threatening with.
Like
so what
that's the
happened
fighter's
was,
fault.
and then they were calling him a runner, a coward, and a pussy. He doesn't want to fight because obviously he was on the back foot. So Bradley sort of went out of character to try and prove them wrong. And this is the problem when boxers start doing things that they're not comfortable doing. It starts to go wrong for them. They fall to pieces.
He was a military man, right? He was in the army too. I mean, so he didn't have the courage to go
about that. But you know, at the end of the day,
father.
He took a bad beat. Obviously, he won the fight still, but he got badly hurt in that fight a few times. He took some big shots, and he wasn't the same for a while after. I remember him drooping his mouth, and his words was a bit slurry, and that. Like, he was in a bad way for a while. So that's probably where he's coming from.
I'll say this about Bradley, man. At least he's not he's not biased in the sense that you get a sense that he's playing one side specifically or an agenda. Of course, these guys, they get told, you know, and remember, they got an earpiece, so they're constantly in communication with the producer or whatever on the truck, telling them, say this, don't say that, cut your words short here, blah, blah, blah. You know, it could be stressful having somebody tell you how to run a fucking show while you're doing it, but he's good, man. I think he's a good. Sometimes maybe that's like you said, Jimmy. He gets a little too excited, and maybe that plays a part into it. But look, he was a great fighter, man. He used his intelligence a lot, except in rare cases, like Stu said when he decided to go to war with Prodovnikov. Which, by the way, you mentioned that Prodovnikov fight. Didn't he say himself that he would have a? He doesn't remember parts of that fight, and that even 6 months after the fight, he would have a. What was it that he was saying? Headaches or memory loss?
That fight fucked him up properly, bro. Honestly, that fight took years off his career. Because Timothy Bradley, he could probably still be fighting now if it weren't for that fight. And he was never really the same. All right, he went and he did some good things after that. He did, but I just felt he lost something that night. They're beatings you just don't want to be taken very often, and it's stupid why he did it. It's just stupid. It's like,
well, you know what that showed the most when he fought Pacquiao. Remember
Leonard went to war with Duran to try and prove a point. And when you try to prove a point in boxing and start stepping out your comfort zones, what you're good at, it's only going one way. And you got to stick to what you know. You can't be letting things get into your mind like that. You got to stick to the job. Most of the greats, all-time greats, are the calm, collective guys. You know, I mean, all right, you'll get your Muhammad Ali character, but he's a one-off. Do you know what I mean? Most of them, like, look how cool, calm, and collective Lewis was and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And even Canelo, you never see. When do you ever see Canelo losing his rag? You just don't. You know, and you got to save that energy. It's all like Tony Bellew, who was shouting and screaming. You know what I mean? And time he's got in the ring, he's half empty any time he's got in the ring. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? That's why, real quick, that's why I feel when a guy decides to box, especially if it's a rematch after they had that difficult fight, that's why I don't disparage those guys. Like, for example, I know here my Mayweather's enemy number one, but I can sort of excuse him the way he fought Maidana the second time, because he did try to fight him on the inside in the first one, and after in the second one, he said, you know what am I doing here, going to war with this heavy-handed guy? Or like Joshua, for example, when in the Luis rematch, that's a fight that he needed to box. Now, my criticism of Joshua in that fight is not that he decided to box, but the fact that Luis was in such awful shape that Joshua didn't do better than he did in that fight.
See, there were so many openings, weren't there, BDAs? There were so many openings there for him, and he just wasn't letting his hands go. I get it.
Exactly.
That's just gunshot probably from getting dropped that first fight.
Yeah, understandable. But I'm still on
his performance. You think he should have walked through him more with his belly like that? Like, he the really dig to the body. The minute that bell rang, I would have went right for that midsection.
Look, I get it. Fighting them tactics, I get it. It was just very cagey for me, and he looked really nervous. He looked shaky every time the fight. Ruiz got inside him. He looked really shaky. You know what I mean? Ruiz was skimming him by millimeters at times. So it just wasn't it was the right performance, but it just wasn't for me. I don't.
But again, I must reiterate. I must reiterate. It's not that that the game plan was good, but it's just the result itself. I have to wonder. It is an important question to ask. I mean, I know it was Luis's fault that he didn't train. It wasn't Joshua's fault. It was Luis's fault. But what would have happened had Luis shown up in shape? How much closer would the scorecards have been in that fight? Or maybe wouldn't have gone to the score. You know what I mean? I mean, that's Luis's fault.
Joshua could have got slept again. Joshua looked pretty at times on the back. This is what I mean. Too many boxing fans, I see a bit of back foot fighting. with a few slick shots here and again, a bit head movement. They get overexcited about it because that's probably the worst way to fight. Say Wilder, if he'd have gone in there like that against Wilder, mate, like I said before, he'd still be asleep now. So,
I personally think his best performance was Klitschko. I don't think he's looked as good since.
And how did he fight Klitschko? He tucked it behind the guard and hunted Klitschko down, doing what he does best, throwing shots at mid-range. When you start getting on, he's not built for back foot fighting because he hasn't got the tank for it. He hasn't got the physique for it. You know, bit robotic, too robotic to fight like that. All right, it worked against a fat slob in Andy Ruiz that night. That is not working against someone in shape with punching power. Do you know what I mean? So Joshua's. See, sometimes the best way of defense is on the front foot, pushing these guys back because there's a lot of fighters out there. They're all good. They can fight when they're coming forward, letting their hands go. But when you push them back, they fall to pieces. They don't know how to fight on the back foot. Wilder's one of them. You push Wilder back and start putting it on him. Shape goes, confidence goes, the footwork, the little footwork he has got, just shatters, disappears. He's all over the place. Balance gone, and he's a mess. So
that's a great
point. That's what you got to do. Joshua. See, the problem Joshua's got with Fury can fight both ways. This is why he's such a hard man to beat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you take it to him, he can fight on the back foot and pick you off. You try to run from him, he can hunt you down and stalk you. I mean, that's what makes him just a little bit better than Joshua for me. There's not a lot in it.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Listen, we should do a special show because I know sometimes on Fridays, Stu, you're not on, but we had a real chaotic show on Friday, which is when we let everybody in. And I think that would be the type of perfect show if we do that maybe on a Tuesday or whatever when you're available so we can address this whole Joshua situation because people seem to think you hate Joshua and they've accused me of doing the same thing. So I think we should do an open show, chaotic, extra chaotic.
Never once said that though. Never once said I hated Anthony Joshua. I was just going by what I'm seeing from the band. Look, they were attacking you, Butcho. They've been attacking all of us, right? And it's just an opinion about another guy. You know, it's not your life's not going. I just don't get it. When people come on here and call fucking Fury a cokehead, fucking steroid user, do you see me getting upset about it? No, it's his opinion. Crack on, bro. But when I say something, fuck off, man.
Well, it's indicative of the whole sport nowadays, and it freaks me out. It's what keeps me off Twitter. Like, I'm a hit and run dude. I get on that, read when I'm on read, and get the fuck off that poison. Because I think maybe even because that's the blame, people feel like they're a part of these guys' lives. Like, they go to fucking verbal war with people. And so it comes down to these people who are living immersed in the fucking boxing culture nowadays. You don't pick a fighter to win a fight. You're picking this dude's side, meaning like, so if I pick, say, going into Canelo Triple G, right? I'm the fucking huge Canelo fan. Huge. I picked Triple G. Didn't mean I hated Canelo. It's so crazy. Like, if you pick against a fighter, it means you hate him. And it's this mindset that's fucking ridiculous.
It is, man. It is, and that's one of the unfortunate things of being here on YouTube is you encounter a lot of knowledgeable guys. Like, you know, I've met you through here, and I wouldn't have met you, I don't think, through any other platform. But at the same time, you open yourself up to a lot of people that just don't know that they're fans of a guy. They're not fans of the sport, and I hate to be.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
being in the boxing world, being in the boxing world, it's like opening the gates of hell and having a few angels sneak in now and again. That's what
it's a great way of putting it. Yeah. I mean, look, listen.
But you know what I mean. I you guys got what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. Did I fucking articulate that right though? Like, you understand what I mean? Like, these guys, it's like way beyond fanboyism, dude. It's like they get angry.
Well, I'll give you an example. There was a couple of people there, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. A lot of the people that made the least quality like posts, if you will, that the people who really made posts that were just completely lacking in any sort of sense, they had these Nigerian names. And I think a lot of these guys are not boxing fans. They're just Joshua fans because of his Nigerian heritage. And as soon as they see somebody criticizing their guy, they go off the post. I mean, one guy was telling Stu, like, "You fool, you are a fool." He was one step away from asking Stu for his social security number. I mean, I don't know what was going on there, but some of the quality of these posts is indicative of people that aren't boxing fans. You know, because I mean, think about it. One of the things I just said, I saw the Joshua Savon fight from the Olympics. It was in the round of 16. And I thought the Cuban clearly won that fight. And I just said that, and people go,
catch
"Oh,
hate?
you was that?"
I said, did you catch a lot of hate for saying that?
I sure did, man. And it was as if it's as if I'd called Joshua's mother a cunt or something. That's what the type of vitriol I received. And I'm thinking, look, I'm used to it because I got that type of stuff when we first started out doing Golovkin Canelo videos. If I would compliment Canelo in something, I would get pushback from the Golovkin fans. And if I complimented Golovkin in something, I would get pushback from the Canelo fans. And if I criticize either guy on some of their flaws, forget about it. So, but I gotta tell you, these Joshua fans, they're not as bad as Canelo fans. They're not as bad as Mayweather and Pacquiao fans, but they're right up there, man, because he is a mainstream guy. So, yeah.
Well, I was gonna. What sucks for me is because, like, I have my, on my avatar, my picture. I kind of wish I didn't do that. Only reason being, well, people have by my name, but when they look at my picture right away, like if I'm in a conversation, okay, for instance, last year on Twitter, right, to show you the insanity, I'm sitting there discussing something back and forth about Spence, reason why, like, I think he would, and it was very calm. I was in a thread basically saying why I think Crawford would be a tough time for Spence. This kid said something, I repeated, I basically, he said, well, something, it was like a one-line thing right back, and his third thing is, oh, you just don't like black fighters. And I was so angry, right, because not only how could you just go to race that quick, but the fact that I'm talking about a black fighter, so you're calling me a racist because I'm saying this black fighter is better at this, but just because, now think about it, his only thing was, you're white, you shouldn't even be talking about black fighters. That's what I took of it. Like, who you even discussed this? Because these are two black fighters. But I think they're so quick to call people racist now on Twitter. Like, he didn't even take the time to realize, like, wait a minute. It's not like I'm sitting there saying, oh, Caleb Plant will beat every fucking black fighter. I'm talking up a black fighter, and you're calling me a racist. So that's when I almost shut my account off. I was like, talk, because if that dude was in front of me, dude, he'd be picking his teeth up with broken fingers.
No.
I swear to God.
Wait a minute.
Swear to God.
My advice to boxing fans would be: don't get invested in one guy. Just enjoy the sport. Because when you get invested in one guy, then what? When he gets fucking destroyed like Wilder did, then what? You become a sack by making excuses and finding reasons why your hero got destroyed. And look, Wilder, the bit of credibility Wilder had in boxing is totally gone. I mean, the guy is a clown now. And these fans have not helped the situation. These fans have not helped the situation. If they were cared about Wilder, they would have said, listen, stop this, bro. This ain't going to fly with most people. These excuses are not going to work. But, they've jumped on it.
Well, you know what? Dude, there's people, real quick, Jimmy, there's people that accused us of being Lomachenko fanboys. We're still here because we're covering the sport. It doesn't matter if the guy that you think we're, because, people thought that we were Lomachenko fanboys. Let's say that was true. Well, we're still here. Why? Because we're boxing fans. The life doesn't start or end with Lomachenko. So I suggest people do the same thing. But you know what? It's hard. When you first start out in the sport, the inclination for some of these newbies is that, hey, they attach themselves to a fighter.
Yeah, they want to be like, exactly. No, you're 100% right. No, I was going to say, if you get on Twitter, or maybe I can send it over to you after, Haymonites there, fucking ego. He did a good one about Google Trends. So it's been 1 year now since the Fury fucking Wilder fight. So he did a worldwide in the United States, and in both, Fury was more popular by a lot. And so you know what that means. How many times his name's been put in the search engine. Now, here's the caveat. How many black fighters, fucking guys on Twitter, come in that thread saying, oh, that's fucking such bullshit. You try to tell me the fucking... And it's like, he's like, no, I'm not trying to tell you nothing. Google Trends. It's an irrefutable fact. His name was put in fucking Google that much more. So the fact that they don't even argue that. When they argue graphs that can't be argued, there's a sickness.
See, I think Wilder made a big mistake because Wilder did have... He was likable at one time. Deontay Wilder was. As much as I didn't rate him as a fighter, I respected his power. I didn't rate his boxing skills. Quite a likable guy at one time. He sort of he turned everyone against him. He's just become not a very nice guy. Let's just say that. Talking about killing people in the ring, screaming and shouting at Radio Raheem, weren't he? And then fucking attacking Brazil when he's with his missus. The guy's just... He just become a horrible person, didn't he? Fucking You know, it's hard to get people on side when you behave like that. I think with Fury, the way he conducted himself, because let's be real, the American media tried to make this a black versus white thing. Fury nipped that in the bud, like he should have done, because it's not about that. It's about two warriors, not about black versus white. I hate that shit.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's when you get certain toxic elements for people.
Well, just white. Look, this is not just white Americans getting behind Fury. There's a lot of black Americans that like Fury as well. You know, it's just, trust me, it's not just white Americans. The media tried to make this about race because that's what they do.
That's right. Hey, by the way, shout out to One Foot Out. Sorry, I forgot to read the super chat here. One Foot Out the Door from a while back says the best need to fight the best or boxing starts today. Absolutely, man. Absolutely, One Foot Out the Door. And DT donated via the super chat as well. And he said later on, at boxing, BDA Boxing, a little donation, boys. I've been listening for donkey years now. All right. Shout out to DT. Thank you for listening. Glad you guys enjoy the content. Don't forget to hit the like button. Hit the like button. Really helps us out. Now, changing the pace a little bit here because we didn't get to this. Beterbiev. Talk about a guy in shape, unlike Andy Luis. Beterbiev showed up, took on this guy whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce. I think he was from Germany. Southpaw. Gave him a good couple of rounds, like Jimmy said. But here's the thing. I was on the Discord watching the fight with, I think it was Triple JJJ and a couple of other people, and we were sort of saying, like, yeah, he might not be... He's not loading up a lot of his shots. It seems like he could do that a little bit more, but whether he loads up on them or not, he definitely seems to have just naturally heavy hands because he snaps guys' heads up with his uppercuts. And he took his time, methodically broke this guy down and ended up getting yet another stoppage. But at the end of the day, whether he looks a little lackluster in there or not, if we would have seen him fight this way prior to Gvozdyk, which he did when he fought some other German dude, we would have said, oh, Gvozdyk is going to outbox him. Bottom line is, it seems like Beterbiev can turn it up when he's in against different types of opposition, and he just doesn't care whether to load up. It seems like he's that confident in his power that he knows he's going to get guys out of there. What did you guys think of Beterbiev and his chances now against, or how he's going to look potentially if he fights Joe Smith Jr. down the line?
Yeah, I think Joe Smith Jr. is in for a terrible fight. Joe Smith is tailor-made for Beterbiev. Joe Smith's going to hang around. He's going to hang around there swinging bombs, and Beterbiev, very accurate with his punches, very schooled as well. You can definitely tell he's got that Soviet background in him. Look, every time he hits you, you know about it. Has Smith ever been stopped? He systematically breaks you down. Yes, this guy can be hurt. Callum Johnson hurt him. Smith can hurt him. There's no doubt about that. But I'm not sure if Joe Smith can take that sort of punishment. Like I said, it just systematically breaks you down. Every shot he lands is taking something from you. And you sort of like lose the will to win when you're in there with someone like that. Because
he's actually very technically sound.
That's what I'm saying. Very technically
very great
sound with his punches. He's not swinging these shots. These shots are short.
He's very economic with his punches.
Very Golovkin-like. Very Golovkin-like. Like I said, that Soviet Union way of, old Soviet way of learning how to throw punches properly. That's one thing they do over there, the Eastern Europeans.
He was setting things up. If you see that fight last night, he wasn't just like most power punches. You get in close enough, you think you got range, you punch. And you can see this. He's in the same range a bunch of other times. He doesn't punch. The reason why he's not in the position he wants to be. You could physically, see him setting things up. That's he's thinking in there. He's like, you could see him leaning to this way, and he'd step to the one side to bring his fight. He was working on things you can tell that he's been working on in the gym, is basically what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, he's a thinker. And you add that power. He's a tough out. Yeah, Joe Smith goes to sleep, I think, that night.
Yeah. See, Vodzik's a very good fight. And let's not underestimate how good Vodzik is. Beterbiev destroyed him. I mean, that just shows you how good Beterbiev is. I don't see anybody in that division beating Beterbiev. And I think Beterbiev would be the one that Canelo doesn't need. He doesn't want to be going anywhere near that guy. There's only so much you can keep going up and fighting someone that big as well. No way. Technically too good as well. So yeah, that's why I'm a Beterbiev. That division, like heavyweight division, I think he's the best right now. Because like I said, I really rated Vodzik highly. I thought I was going to be a real close fight, and Beterbiev knocked him out, didn't he? Destroyed him. So very, very hard man to beat.
Yeah, he certainly looked. Again, some people said he looked lackluster, but it seemed like we'd seen him look like this before against that other German dude who was a strong guy. I think it was prior to the Gvozdyk fight. So I was surprised. Maybe there was a little bit of ring rust because of the whole layoffs thing that has been happening to a lot of fighters. But in the end, he got yet another stoppage. This guy has not gone the distance in any of his fights. Rather, just strong. And let's not forget, fellas, he's got a boxing acumen because he was the Russian amateur star back in the day. It wasn't Kovalev who was his nemesis. It was him. And there's a great fight out there, amateur fight that he had with Alexander Usyk. And it was a highly competitive one, man. This guy can box. So like you guys were saying, maybe he'll show a different dimension against Joe Smith Jr. and really take him out there. We got to recognize you guys. I gotta leave for about 5 minutes. I gotta take an overseas phone call here, but you guys take over and I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, Jesus in the chat, he thinks Benavidez beats Beterbiev. Well, I just don't see that. I mean, I've not seen anything from Benavidez to convince me he can beat Beterbiev. Benavidez has got 168 problems he needs to be sorting out. Not worrying about fighting up the best guy in the 175. You know, look.
Yeah, that's a big jump. That's a big leap. 168 to 175. I mean, first off, he's about the same height. So for the first time, and then if they stood face to face, and if you were standing behind Beterbiev, you wouldn't see fucking you wouldn't see Benavidez. He would be just a muscular cavity on that dude, and the way Beterbiev comes in, Benavidez comes in squared up. It would just be all wrong.
It looks like when you hit Beterbiev, it hurts you more than it hurts him. He's like a fucking rock. His body is. What the fuck is that? I mean, like seriously, what is that? He's like, I look at him, I say, okay, this dude is 6 feet, 190, fucking muscled up, like top to bottom. I don't even think. Sometimes I wonder if he really has to work out to have that physique. He's like one of those guys.
Beterbiev looks like he's been. He looks like he's been doing that fucking Rocky IV training in Siberia, doesn't he? Exactly. He does. That's because that's not athletic muscle sort of thing. That's like power muscle. He looks powerful. He doesn't look like ripped. He looks powerful.
Exactly, dude. You know who he looks like? And you can always tell the difference. My favorite all-time bodybuilder in history, and I was big into it all the time, is a British boy, fucking Dorian Yates. His muscle was so thick, and when I finally got a chance to meet him, and I sat down.
Jimmy, are you on about Dorian Yates from Birmingham?
Oh yeah, my favorite all-time bodybuilder.
That guy had muscle, didn't he?
Oh, dude, when I got to sit down with him, right, and when it was like an hour between shows, it was a break, so he went and had lunch with us, me and my buddy Scotty. And he was the guest speaker, $10 an autograph. He was making a killing. He was there, right? And listen, what shocked me, wicked intelligent, well-read. He reads a lot. But I asked him, like, dude, how did you get that fiber so thick? He goes, I was a power lifter. He goes, that's how I train everybody. Tell everybody, in the beginning, don't try to become a bodybuilder. And he's like, don't try to fucking mold the clay until the clay is there. But instead of cheap, weaselly clay that, he didn't use those words, but until it dissipates, if it's all water and steroids, he says, build it mass through powerlifting. And you're 100% on the money when you just describe Beterbiev. That is power. That's deadlifting, squats, heavy bench presses. That muscle's been put on through power. You 100% right.
Rocky IV training. That's not gym work. That's done that. That's fucking in the mountains in the snow in Siberia.
But I'm so glad you knew Dorian Yates, man. That makes my heart lift.
Dorian Yates. I think was he a 7 times Mr. Olympian or something like that?
8 times.
8 times.
Believe, yes.
And this guy had so much. When you speak to a lot of the bodybuilders from the past, they all say Dorian Yates was the one that had the body that they impressed them the most.
There'll never be another dude like him. His thickness. When I have my picture taken now, me and Scotty on either side, he got his arms over our shoulders, right? Dude, his arm must have weighed 150 pounds, but I'm holding him by his bottom lat, right? I got my arm in his bottom lat. His whole lat took out my wingspan. So, as he opened up. So his whole dude. So my fingers, they're going into his spine. And I swear on my father's, my dad, right, on his soul, it went as deep it came right to my wrist bent, and because I remember holding him by his bottom lat. And the minute he walked away and I got to Scotty, I turned to my buddy's guy, and Scotty beat me too. He goes, "Did you fucking feel how thick his lat?" Dude, his lower lats when he stood up went off his spine 4 inches. That's one of the hardest muscles you can build thick like that. And right away we went like, "Dude, how did you do that?" He goes, "180-pound fucking one arm rows until my
because like they say Dorian Yates earlier on in his career, right? Well, they said they'd have tournaments all over the world, not really see him. He'd turn up like out of nowhere after 6 months and just fucking blow everyone out the water.
One of the best for psychological warfare. He read Sun Tzu when he was a teenager.
Exactly.
Dude, listen, I don't want to go off on that because a lot of people get angry, saying, "Oh, go to boxing." But bodybuilding was a huge part of my life, and to me, he's the Muhammad Ali of bodybuilding.
Dude, I'm looking at Dorian Yates images on Google, and this motherfucker's back is that's unreal. Jesus.
Yeah.
It was. I also try to find the picture. And I'll put it up.
Sorry, Jimmy. You should check his podcast with Joe Rogan. That's a real good watch.
Excellent. I've listened to it about 5 times, dude.
It's brilliant.
Dorian Yates was on Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, that's right. You should. That was one of the best Rogan shows I watched. That one was with Dorian Yates.
Right.
Check it out. I watch Rogan from time to time, especially when he has like guests that I'm interested in. I watch him.
No, and his thing was like you just said, what he would do. Like Flex Wheeler said it. Flex Wheeler was he probably had the best God-given talent. His joints were tiny, and he had huge muscle bellies, and he could do these crazy backflips and splits. But he said it, man. Nobody did psychological warfare. He wouldn't show up. He would, like most guys in the gym when they're jacked, down to their tank top the minute they break a sweat. Dorian Yates, anywhere he trained, wore a hoodie. I adopted that too. I never, until and then he would show the day of the show, and he says I would do it on purpose, and people were just like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah, because the thing is, what he used to do, he used to go and train in this little gym he had made himself, right? And he'd go missing for 6 months. So people would think, "Oh, well, he's here. He's going to be out of shape. He ain't been doing any competitions." He'd take his top off, mate, and fucking steal the show. He was a monster.
Yeah, that's 6 months. He was fucking.
Look at the pictures of his gym, dude. Purposely, he said, "I never cleaned it up on purpose." Like it was asbestos hanging from the walls. It was every machine in there you needed, and he even made his own. Like there was no machine that he could work his lower back. So check this out. He would take a fucking regular bench press bar. He would corner it in the corner of the room so it would have nowhere to go, right? And just put it in there. Then he would take the fucking the cable. He would do seated cable rows with, and he would load up on the front of the bar like 17 45-pound plates, dude, and just do strict. Dude, it was I've never seen anybody train with form that heavy in my life.
He used to spend all his wages. He used to go work a week, spend all his wages on food just to fucking keep himself energized.
He was trying to do. He told me he was trying to do back when I talked, because I try to suck every information out of him you could imagine. And I asked him, like, "What are you doing for calories a day?" He says, "I try to target 6,000, but I'm doing about 4,500." And if you understand how hard that is to hit when you eat clean food, that's not 10 fucking cheese steaks, dude. Trying to do that. So when he told me, listen, hand to God, this is what he was eating a day. He was eating 46 eggs, 4 pounds of chicken, 2 pounds of lean beef, and 6 protein drinks, and then he'd try to squeeze 1 more meal in at night. Every day. And then he would get up in the middle of the night every 2 hours and eat rice.
Hey, Jimmy,
it's the most selfish sport you can ever think of in your life, dude. It's the most selfish. Like, it ruins vacations. It costs me relation, dude. It was ugly.
Yeah, Jimmy, I was going to ask you that, because I went through a phase like that. I went through a phase where if I didn't work out, I felt like shit. And this was
your girl has to be a part of it, everything, or it ruins it. It's just because you're so selfish. Everything evolves around it.
I started in my late 20s. I was always into exercising, but in my late 20s, right when I was about to become I started hanging out with a bunch of bouncers that hung out in the gym where I would go work out. And that's where it really started. And I remember I must have put on something like 20 pounds of muscles. I was already a pretty big dude.
Right?
Maybe more than that.
Did you get addicted to it?
Yes, Jimmy. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, something happened.
I got addicted to it. And I definitely did. Yeah. I was always into, obviously when I was younger, I was always athletic. But I was more into, like, obviously because of sports that I play, boxing I didn't play sport. Yeah, that's the difference. But all the sports that I play, it's like you know, you got to be really athletic, right? Elusive and shit like that. But I remember I always played with the weights, but not like a big weight guy. Like, ooh.
Well, if you're doing other sports, you shouldn't because it damages your joint and makes you stiff.
Right.
But Dorian Yates actually set my mind straight. And he told me, he said, dude, he goes, listen, get what you can out of this, right? I don't know where you want to go with it, but get out as soon as you can. Because what you're suffering from right now, I had to come to terms with it. It's reverse anorexia. We always look in the mirror. We always look like, you know, we don't see what other people see. And he actually really was very, he opened my eyes to a lot of shit, man. I have so much respect for Dorian Yates. I can't even begin to fucking, I'd have to have a whole show on how much he meant to me in my bodybuilding world.
What's going on here? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
BDA.
I just got back. Yeah, I just got back and I
Clear
heard
as day.
silence. I said, what the hell's going on? So what are you guys talking
Yeah, we
about
talked
Dorian
about
Yates?
bodybuilding. So while you were gone, we went off into
Sorry
talk
about
about Dorian Yates, but
That guy was
because
a
he was
fucking...
my Muhammad Ali.
Hey,
So,
when
but
I
anyway,
used to
we'll get
work
back
out-
to boxing.
When I got into working out, Jimmy, they would make that joke. They're like, hey, who the fuck this guy thinks he is? Dorian Yates? They're like, yo, you're fucking hogging up the...
Yeah, dude, he was my hero.
I heard on the Joe Rogan podcast, he said he would only train about 45 minutes, I think, and that people go 45 minutes, and then he was like, well, let's see if you can do those 45 minutes. It was intense.
Everything was. He would do 2 to 3 reps. I mean, instead of like you see guys do, I'll do fucking, 4 sets of fucking shoulder press. I mean, shoulder flies. No, he would do 1 warm up and then it went heavy.
Jeez.
But he damaged his body doing that way. But like he would do like shoulder presses, seated shoulder presses, 185 to 225 pound dumbbells in each hand, strict form. Think about that. 225 in each hand, strict form. How strong that dude was. Yep.
200.
Christ, dude, dude, I'm 100. I was like probably my best, like 212. I was 5'7", but I was using 130 pounders, strict form, dumbbell presses and shit. I deadlift and squatted, pretty good too. But he threw around weights. He told us his numbers, and dude, he would warm up with 315, right? He'd do it 22 to 26 times as his warm up, 315, and then he would go right to 455 and then 500 till completion. Until he just couldn't.
Jeez, that's insane.
Yeah,
man.
no, crazy, insane powerlifting. That's how he put on such dense muscle. No, you're off the phone. I said when I got my picture with him, and he had his arm over my back, like over my shoulders, like around me and my buddy, one on either side of him, and his whole lat took out my wingspan on my right side, and I held into his lower lat, dude, and my whole hand sunk down into his lower lat, into his spine. It was.
Jeez.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy how thick that motherfucker was. Just look him up at his heyday. There's a lot of black and white pictures of him, and even though it was in the 90s, and it's just the fibers. He was like touching concrete.
Yeah, I recognize
Jimmy,
it has a photo of my arm.
That's the biggest I got my arm, Jimmy, right there.
That's my arm. That's my arm. What do you think? Where'd you get that picture, recognize?
Yeah, it's mine.
Is that you, dude?
Yeah. That was me.
Dude, you look like Suge Knight. I thought that was Suge Knight.
No. I took Suge Knight off. Oh, you didn't see it.
Oh, dude, I was like, my God, I recognize you look like Suge Knight. You should be doing
that is
Suge Knight. And I'm saying to myself, my God, that kid's skin color changes tone. You look lighter than that before. How does he do that?
Really nice tats.
Motherfucker.
Hey guys, I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna get an early night tonight. Got a long day ahead of me.
Oh, it's nighttime over there.
All right, Stu. You have a good evening, brother. And I'm fucking so pumped that you like Dorian Yates. You have no idea.
Yeah, listen, mate. I like all sorts of sports. I'll try any sport. I'll watch most things. Now,
is he treated with respect in England? Does England appreciate who he is? Like, do they understand who? I don't know. I mean, it's such a niche thing.
The guys in the gyms, they all know who he is.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he's respected, but like I said, he's not a household name. There's only people
just in the community. Yeah, exactly. Understandable in the community. In the weightlifting.
He's not like Schwarzenegger. I mean, Schwarzenegger before he was in the movies was a big household name, wasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, because of that, yeah. Once he did Terminator.
Yeah, Jimmy, the picture I just put up, that was me. Like
it's still just Suge Knight for me, dude.
Oh, okay.
Recognize him. Yeah, why have you got Suge Knight as your avatar?
Because Suge Knight did nothing wrong. That's why.
Well, that kid. Did you guys see that kid?
He looks in that picture there. You couldn't have picked a picture
More
of Susan
sinister.
looking more snaky and
Yeah, sinister.
devious.
That's what I was thinking. Well, that kid Ackman, who did you guys see that debate with him in Ring IQ? Did you know that he fucking reneged on the bet? Because once the fight was signed, he was supposed to pay him $130. But because, check this out, this was his reasoning for fuck him, I'm not paying him. He's a snitch. I guess Ring IQ, all he did was just say to him in a tweet, listen, I know you're bragging about all the money you're making and you're an artist, because he calls himself an artist. He goes, but let's be honest, all you do is take copyrighted pictures off the internet, fucking color them in and sell them and earn money on them illegal. That's called copyright infringement. He never reported them. He just told them what you're doing is illegal. And for that little classless fuck, I ain't paying him. He's a snitch.
He was just looking to renege.
Anything, dude, anything. What a low character. You know how you can tell that kid has no center of morals? He gets on the fucking thing when he does talk about politics, because I went to his timeline, see how insane he was. Bashing Trump, bashing the right, but then then he tweets out a picture of him shooting an AK-4, an AR-15, talking about he loves his guns and I'm like, wait a minute, so you're fucking voting for the party who wants to rip them off from your hand?
From you.
Like, so goes to show he has no center, dude. He has no moral fucking ground. He's just an idiot, just a fucking idiot.
It's called privilege, because he knows they're not trying to take his gun.
But you know what I'm saying? They're going to outlaw it, and he just
they're going to outlaw it, of course.
But he just doesn't even care. He's just so fucking.
If I may
but you know what it is?
He just here.
Because most of his people hate Trump, so he's going to bash him. You know what I mean? My point is, he has no convictions. He's just a fucking.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because I was following that storyline on Twitter as well. And first of all, I knew he wasn't going to pay, man. I mean, you could just tell right off the bat he was trying to find all sorts of technicalities.
It was a bad bet too. It's like what he's trying to do, and even IQ was taking a risk at that too. You got to give him some credit as well, because he's taking a risk. You're taking a bet on somebody's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You don't know how that's going to work out.
Exactly. And
I give credit for them for just not losing their mind on that kid. So what you're trying to tell me is the fight's not signed yet. He would just, the things he would say, and then he would literally lie. Like, see, to me, a liar, dude, like, I despise liars. Like, there's one thing for saying something because you heard it wrong, disseminating wrong information is one thing, but knowingly make up something to argue it, to me, you're the lowest form of fucking life, especially on social media. You're like a fucking child molester in real life, because I think that's the lowest form in real life. On social media, all you have is your word. So when you know you're coming into something with a made-up story, I have no respect for you. None.
And it's interesting, man, because he, like I said before, as soon as I saw the debate, I saw the guy's eyes. And I said, he's not all there. And we talked about this a little bit when we mentioned this case. And he definitely does look like he's a bit of a narcissist, or I'm not going to go that far, but you never know. He could be some sociopath guy. Because here's the other thing. There's a clip on Twitter when I was reading the story, or following the timeline rather. He's talking with somebody on screen on his own Facebook feed or something. And he steps back away from the camera, starts rubbing his chin. You know how like people do that as a joke in movies or whatever. The guy who's checking himself out on camera, he's sort of like rubbing. That's what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. But he wasn't kidding. He was being serious. Say, okay, this guy's he's you can tell he's a bit of a narcissist, man. He thinks he's good looking and all that. I hate to break it to you, kid, but there's a reason why
when life reminds him, bro, you just average at best.
Dude, he told Ishii Smith he should better watch himself, because he's out at the fights and he knows how to box too. He just told the kid, who maybe not be a heavy puncher, but he's a professional boxer, bare knuckle fighter, Ishii Smith, who's 6 foot. And this kid's, because I go to the range enough, so by him standing at that range shooting his pistol and his AR-15, I know exactly how tall he is, because it's always uniform height, right? He's maybe 5'6". Maybe 5'6", and he's about 160, chubby, and he's on the internet threatening boxers.
These guys, these boxers will crush him. Ishii Smith, look, you're right. He's not a big puncher, but street fighting is totally
destroy him. He would destroy that
that dude. Yeah, No joke.
So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? So hey, now okay, so you try to break it down. You take a step back. You say, okay, he's over 21 years old, right? Because he's range shooting unaccompanied. So he's over 21 years old. So there's something, like BDA said, there's something off. There's no way you can say things like that and be serious and not be something off with that person. And this is a problem with social media, because we were kids. When I was a kid, when I was 21, I was held accountable for my words. More than once when I was a fucking youngin', man, one of the older dudes had to give me a backhand because I ran my mouth. You know, the guys in the crowd. The guys we all looked up to.
There was this guy on the internet, and he was an old school cat. He might have been a gangster or something like that, black dude. But he said something that I totally agree with. He was having some type of argument with someone. And he said, you know, back in my day, when you talked like that, you had to hold yourself accountable, because we would have bumped heads, and there wasn't all these safety precautions like cameras and stuff like that, and you would have had to deal with me. Yep. And when I heard him say that, I'm like, that's right. We were
dude. Like, you're my age, dude. You're only fucking. You know what I mean? When we were little, that would have made a big difference our age. But as we get older, that 10 years don't make fucking much. So we're around the same generation. You're Gen Z too, and I mean Gen X like me. So you were around where you were held accountable for the things you said. Because you couldn't hide behind a screen. If you wanted to be heard, your opinion amongst your peers wanted to be heard, you had to say it in person. These kids are not held accountable for their words, and it just gets out of control.
Yep.
Listen, that's why if this internet thing it's talk about boxing and more or less we try to focus on the fights themselves, because if you start talking about the outside of the ring stuff, which we do have to talk about as well because it's part of boxing, but if that's all you're talking about, the boxing politics and he said, she said, then it can become very easily, it can easily turn into that type of debate where, well, he said this, no, well, I think he said, it becomes very subjective to a certain point. And this whole YouTube thing has opened the doors for people like that who just want to argue for the sakes of arguing and who cheerlead for specific fighters as opposed to the boxing itself.
It's very toxic, man. It's like these people who immerse themselves in the YouTube world, like really, and they're on it all day. It's toxic. I can understand. I think it affects probably affects their personalities too.
It's got to, man. Yeah, it's got to mold. Then again, I think it brings out what you already have inside. It's sort of like drugs. You know what I mean? It's like if you're an angry person, it's gonna bring out anger. If you're paranoid, you're gonna have a bad trip. By the way, real quick, shout out to Jaguar who says hello, gentlemen, via the super chat. Shout out to Jaguar. Shout out to Chris K. Shout out to Chris K who says, body dysmorphia sucks. I'm glad I stopped bodybuilding. Whoa, all right.
My boy Chris knows. He knows. It's exactly what it is. It's a reverse anorexia. It's ugly.
It is. You know, I think I was telling BDA, and I was telling you, Jimmy, that I dropped a lot of weight. Even though I feel better, a part of me still, because I did all that working out, sometimes when I look at myself, I'm like, damn, man, I'm smaller than I used to be. It's still in my head.
I had somebody say, didn't you used to be Jimmy DiMarino?
Nah, really?
Swear to God, after my accident, dude, you got to understand, at my biggest, I said 212 and I was ripped. But at my biggest, at 5'7", I got up to about 228 with a six-pack. So think about that, dude, at 5'7" and a half. Yeah, my arms were fucking, with a pump and with a flex, were just shy under 21 inches around, and my waist was 29 and a half. My waist was only 7.5 inches smaller than my arm.
Yeah.
Jeez, you were huge.
I got pictures of me in the water, dude, right now from Aruba, because my ex-wife has all those pictures before my accident and stuff, and like from the back, it's like I look at them like you can barely see my head from my traps. Like I was a freak. It was grotesque. Now I look at them like fuck was I thinking? You get to the point where literally the only people who compliment you are hardcore gym rat chicks or other guys. So I always tell people, you've gone too far when you're in a club and the only people saying, wow, dude, you look, wow, what do you bench? You're like, talk about your physique or other dudes. You missed the plot. You missed the plot.
Hey, well,
I tell everybody, stop at the underwear model stage. Stop at the fucking market. Seriously, stay there. That's just, as long as you look good with your shirt off and you're healthy. Don't ever it's just an ugly, selfish, damaging sport.
Hey, case in point, that meme that I talked about before, where there was a guy on bodybuilding.com, or I forget which forum it is. It's a very famous forum where all these people gathered to talk about bodybuilding, and somebody became infamous in there because they would just go around people's profiles leaving private messages saying, "Oh, you're looking great," blah blah blah. And this one became a meme where the guy said, "Awesome pics, great size, looks thick, solid, tight. Keep us all posted on your continued progress with any new progress pics or vid clips. Show us what you got, man. I want to see how freaking huge, solid, thick, and tight you can get. Thanks for the motivation." Now, if somebody sent me that as a private message, I would get the fuck out of that forum as quickly as possible.
The dude's rubbing one out to you. You know what I mean? You know when it got out of control for me? I never did it, because to me I couldn't even understand it. But one of my boys did it, and actually I have a picture I can send you. I wish I had one with his shirt off because you'd see it. The pumping pose, when that started coming in the late 90s, I'm like, this is gross. It's basically oil, and you shoot it into whatever muscle you want, and it basically spreads around the muscle. And I mean, you've seen those guys, those grotesque, oversized arms. That's all pumping pose. It's oil. It basically has the effect of like you took a hammer and smashed your muscle and made it swell up. But then when it hards, it leaves deposits of fucking grossness. It makes your muscle deformed. Everybody gets into it back in the day have all had surgeries now. I never did it. I knew then. I'm like, it's cheating, first off. It's disgusting. Plus, the judges, if they even a judge ever caught wind of you having that, you were automatically disqualified. And you could tell. You just didn't have the same
What was that called, Jimmy? What was it called?
Pump and pose. You
so it's like this liquid that they would stick inside.
Liquid, just shot it into your muscle. Yeah, those guys, those freaky biceps.
Yeah.
My buddy did it on his biceps, and he would have won the show in Maine. We went up to the Mains, and one of the judges told us, because one of the judges also a bodybuilder who knew my buddy Scotty. And he goes, "What happened? What did my guy get?" He goes, "He's got pumping pulls in his arms." Scotty goes, "Dude, I know him. I work out him now and then. I don't know him that good if he's doing it." Because he said, "Scott, you can tell." He goes, "Nah, I saw it. I thought," and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I wasn't going to give that kid the win. He didn't deserve it. Fuck you, pump and pose."
Mm-hmm. Hey, by the way, real quick, I want to get to a phone call here because the phone lines are about to close. 267, you're on the air. 267, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, man. What's on your mind?
Basically, I just logged in. My name's Ray. I'm calling from Philly. I used to call a few months ago, but I wanted to touch on the topic. So you guys are talking about Crawford and Ortiz, right?
Yeah, that was in the beginning. Yeah, we were talking about, because people are divided. Some people say Ortiz walks through him. Other people say he's not quite ready for Crawford. So that's the discussion. Yeah, that's a point of contention right there.
Okay, cool. Well, it's my contention that I like Ortiz, man. I do. I like Ortiz, but I feel like Crawford is too much for him, but I do think that I don't really like the type of style Ortiz employs in a ring. It's pretty much just like one style. He comes in a crouch with his hands high, and he tries to like over muscle you, which has been working thus far, but I don't think that'll work against Crawford, because we gotta look at Crawford. People say, and I was just on Thunderdome Boxing Talk debating him and Precise about Crawford's resume, and people say that Crawford really hasn't fought anyone, but if you look at it, it's not necessarily true, because you look at Victor Postol. Victor Postol beat Lucas Matisse for the WBA. Then he fought in a unification match against Crawford. Now, people want to say that Crawford ran and Crawford did this, but Crawford still beat him decisively. So that was a good win. Then if you look at Breidis Prescott, when Breidis Prescott fought Amir Khan coming up, he knocked Amir Khan out. After that, Amir Khan went on to beat Victor, what's his name? He went on to beat Marcos Maidana. He went on to beat, what's the other guy name? He beat Marcus Maidana. He beat Devin Alexander. 2 good wins. And he beat the dude from Brooklyn, the Puerto Rican dude with the bald head. I can't think of his name. But
Carlos, don't you agree also? But instead of going through all we know who they fought, but I'm with you, Carlos, and I think fucking Crawford's unbelievable. I think Ortiz, it's too much of a step up. He hasn't seen enough quality. He hasn't seen enough variety. And I think Crawford be just got too much ring IQ for the kid right now. I think, that's just my opinion. But I think what my thing is with this, yes, his resume might not have the killers on it, But I don't need to see that. I got my eyes. I see what the kid can do. I can see him switch effortlessly, right? Southpaw to orthodox. I see his hooks. I see his check. I just see him do the right things at the right time. So that's why I think I look at BoxRec to a certain point or who they fought.
Yeah.
But you want to just see a kid, see what he's got. And I think Crawford, to me, is you add that in his mentality, his dog fucking mentality. I think he's the best welterweight right now. That's my opinion.
Can I just add something real quick? I would just like to add something real quick because Thunderdome's in the chat and he said that their point was that Crawford has not beaten any A-level fighters, any prime A-level fighters,
Exactly.
which is
Thunderdome,
true,
what's up, buddy?
Go ahead, Caller.
Okay, well, I would like to say this.
90
I'm
seconds.
going to hop on one of Thunderdome lives when you get back in, but I would like to say this. When I was talking to Precise, Precise had pretty much extolled Errol Spence for having, and I think Thunderdome can, I think he will concur with me on this, because one thing I'm not known for being, if y'all remember me, I'm not known for being biased, and I'm not known for being a liar. But one thing that Precise has said is who has the better resume at welter, and he said because Errol Spence had beat more proven guys like Porter and Danny Garcia. But let me ask y'all this.
60 seconds.
Danny Garcia, a proven guy at 147, when he lost to every top fighter he's fought, he's essentially a gatekeeper at 147. And a lot of people thought Porter actually beat Spence, and I was amongst that contention who thought Porter actually beat Spence. But my point is, I'm not going to say this, and I'm going to let you guys
thought
go.
Porter lost to you guys.
If we
let me finish.
If we look at Terence Crawford, the people talk about like Thunderdome talk about how he brought Juan Diaz down to 147 and 140. But if we look at when Terence Crawford fought Breeders' Prescott right after the Amir Khan loss, the Amir Khan won when Terence Crawford jumped from 135 to 140. No, he jumped from 130 to 135 on a 2-week notice to outbox a guy that's much bigger than him in Breeders' Prescott. So Terence Crawford has some very solid wins on his record. Only person that you may can give Spence over Crawford at welter is Sean Porter, but Danny Garcia is a gatekeeper. But go ahead.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
You want me to go, BDA?
Because I wanted to see who, between you and Jimmy, one of you wanted to go. But go ahead, Regan.
Yeah.
I was just gonna. Can I just? I thought he lost out.
Hold on. one at a time.
Sorry,
You guys decide.
Go recognize. Go.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was going to say, look, when it comes to the Ortiz, I think that's too soon for him. Crawford beats him. And I agree with Jimmy that judging a fighter is more than his resume, box record, whatever. All that makes sense. It's true. So therefore, Ortiz, I've heard people say that Ortiz might be the best win on his resume. That's an argument you can make, but I don't look at it that way. I just look at experience. I look at the way he fights. I think Crawford definitely beats him at this point of their career. In terms of like Danny Garcia being a gatekeeper, I would disagree with that. Gatekeepers don't almost beat you, and that's the thing about Danny Garcia. He almost beat Keith Thurman, and he almost beat Sean Porter.
And what do you guys think about Porter? You guys.
Actually, hold on. Let's start with the caller and see what I think he had something to say about what Recognize it. Go ahead, caller.
No, I definitely respect your opinion, but I have to diplomatically disagree. I feel Sean, if you actually look at like the punch numbers, which in the Sean Porter and Danny Garcia fight, Sean Porter outlanded him damn near 2-1. He outlanded him, and in the fight, in the Keith Thurman fight, he didn't really start fighting until like the 7th or 8th round. And he was just throwing there wasn't really any clean shots. In the first 4 to 5 rounds, Keith Thurman was whooping his ass badly, actually, but then he just slowed down. But my point is, you have fighters. I cannot believe I can't think of the Puerto Rican dude named
Colasso. You want to say Colasso? Luis Colasso.
You talking about Colasso?
Luis Colasso. Luis Colasso fought top fighters and went neck to neck with him. He went neck to neck with Keith Thurman. He stopped Victor Ortiz. A lot of people thought he beat what's his name? Ricky Hatton. A lot of people thought he beat Andre Berto. But was he a top fighter?
I know what he's trying to
say.
Yeah, I know what it. Yeah, but listen, Colasso.
He's giving him credit for the Khan win, which is fine. But Khan had already been knocked the fuck out badly by Breeders' Prescott. he got knocked out
Danny
by
Garcia.
Canelo. Almost killed him, like literally almost killed his ass.
Danny
Garcia stopped him.
Danny
Yeah.
Garcia chin checked him.
Let me say this real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm gonna say this real quick, and I'm gonna let you go. Amir
Oh, you
Khan,
can,
after
but
Amir
take your
Khan
time,
got
caller.
knocked
Take your
out
time.
badly by.
Take your time.
Okay,
You don't
cool.
have-
After
yeah.
Amir Khan, no, I'm my bad. I just talk fast sometimes. I'm gonna slow down. I'm really like adamant about boxing. Let me slow down. So
Which is good.
after
That's
good.
good. You
Amir
got
Khan
passion,
knocked
brother. That's
out-
all. No, nothing to apologize for. You got passion.
All right, so I'm gonna slow down a little bit. After Amir Khan went to be a 2-time champ at 140 after he got knocked out badly by Bradis Prescott. So I mean, that doesn't. I'm not trying to negate your point, but what I'm saying is, like, we seen like good gatekeepers who went neck to neck with top fighters before. So that's what I'm saying. But in my opinion, Danny Garcia at the top level, Sean Porter has excelled at the top level. If you like. You would say, okay, Sean Porter might have lost to Errol Spence, but some people still have Porter winning against Spence, or some people still have Porter winning against Thurman, or drawing against Thurman. A lot of people thought Danny Garcia, decisively lost to Keith Thurman. I thought he decisively lost.
Ray, let me
Porter.
ask you.
He just
How do you think Porter did it? How do you think Porter did against you guys? I personally had you guys beating Porter. Ray, that's your name, right? What do you think?
Yeah, you know what?
I thought he edged it
Sean
out.
Porter because he's the dog. I love Sean Porter because he's a dog and he has heart. But yeah, I think that was a knockdown in the 12th round. I ain't gonna lie. I had it a draw, but if you edge the Ugas, I can see that as well. Porter didn't get off on him that well like he did on against Spence. But this is just my contention. My contention is a lot of people are hard on Bud, but if you look at Bud, and I remember Thunderdome made this point, and Boxing Beats and Rhymes made this point. A lot of people were saying that Tyson didn't fight like a lot of people, but he beat the top contenders you put in front of him. Same thing with Larry Holmes. When you look at styles, for example, like Lomachenko, I just should have wrote all this stuff down. I like Lomachenko. Lomachenko's a top guy, but by Lomachenko's own admission in the Fight Hop interview, he said that he put Terence Crawford over himself. He said that I have Terence Crawford over me in my pound for pound. Now, who knows if he was being modest or not? But Terence Crawford deals with style.
That's still a big
better than Loma.
respect.
Like when you said what?
I said that's a lot of respect coming from Lomachenko. You know what I mean? That's a huge thing. I would personally take that as a fucking, you know what I mean? Like, wow, having Lomachenko say that about me.
But I do think that Crawford deals with styles better than Lomachenko because a lot of people say, okay, well, when Loma, you guys going to know who I'm talking about. I keep forgetting names. What's that guy when Loma fought him in the second and third? No, the guy when Loma fought that kept low blowing Loma and all that, and he lost too.
Oh, Salido.
Yeah, Salido. If you look at when Salido was like being rough with Loma in the first few rounds and stuff like that, Loma was a little bothered, and that's understandable. He's coming from the Olympics. But if you look at Jeff Horn, and Jeff Horn was big. I'm not saying that Jeff Horn has skills, but Salido didn't really have skills either. But they both were bigger. Like Jeff Horn was bigger than Crawford. Bradis Prescott was bigger than Crawford. But when Jeff Horn was trying to use those rough tactics that he befuddled Pacquiao with, I do believe that Pacquiao beat Jeff Horn. But those rough tactics were getting to Pacquiao. That didn't bother Crawford at all. So Crawford deals with styles. That's why I say he's the best welter, and he actually has beat people because it's not a style that he can't suppress. He can suppress any style. You want to box him, he can outbox you. You want to, people, you look at Kavaliauskas, if you have eyes, you can tell Kavaliauskas is a good fighter, a former Olympian. Very solid, good balance, good timing. Even Andre Ward and Timothy Bradley were impressed with his timing. And Kavaliauskas knocked him down. Not only did Bud get up, adjust, and stop them, but he walked forward from a southpaw position.
Do you really think that was a knockdown? Are you talking about the one where he kind of grabbed him?
Well, let's not get into that right now, though, because we have to keep this. Otherwise, we're going to be all over the place. We have to keep this into perspective. Right. Let's stay on with this. Let's say this. We have to look at each guy's last 3 fights. Because if we just look at the last one, it's not a large enough sample size, right, to judge what each guy has left in the tank. I agree, Crawford is good. 2 years ago, before the Khan fight, I was defending him against a possible Spence fight. because a lot of people on the panel said, Crawford sucks. And I was like, nah, man, he's good, blah, blah, blah. 2 years later, I can no longer defend him as vehemently as I did in the past because I think he has been regressing. And I think, I don't know if it's his fault or not. Again, I don't follow the behind-the-scenes things as closely as other people do, but it's clear that he's getting clipped more. Kavaluskas clipped him. Kell Brook was having his way with him, even though that fight only went, 4 rounds, I believe?
I think it's because he changed his style, BDA.
But even then, Jimmy, like, look, Kell Brook looked like a fucking refugee that day of the weigh-in. He and Crawford looked nice and plump, like a Christmas goose. So I don't know what was going on there, but Kell Brook was definitely compromised going into the fight, and he was actually outboxing Crawford. Yeah, maybe Crawford is acting a little bit more or fighting in a more aggressive way, and I do think that if he wants to, he can still fight off the back foot like he did against Postal. But there's no denying that Spence has fought the better competition. And when he's young, when you factor in that he's younger, that he's beaten the better opposition, that Crawford is actually going on 34 now, or about to be 35, and he has not been fighting the type of guys that will prepare him for an Errol Spence, things don't look good for Crawford that much. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, to what Thunderdome made an excellent point, Ray brought up Thunderdome's point about what he does with it's not always so much if you're fighting someone who isn't that good, it's okay, this guy might not be good. It's how he takes care of them. Mm-hmm. My philosophy on what happened with Crawford, when he first got up, remember, he came from 140. From 140 to 147 is a huge jump. Those 7 pounds, when you're coming up in weight, that's a big one. And I think in the beginning, he wasn't 100% acclimated to 147. He wasn't grown into the weight. I think when he got into the class, now he can accept those punches better. And I think he puts himself in a position more now to let go. And BDA, when you want to be offensive, there's a drawback, right? The more offense you get, the more chance you get open up to get clipped. Mm-hmm. I've yet to see him really hurt. The reason why I brought up that I don't think that was a knockdown. I think he was more thrown to the ground. It was counted as a knockdown, but whatever. I just think he takes care of the people in front of him. Brook had no business. Once you go to middleweight, to come down a weight like that, that's crazy. He was definitely emaciated the day before, and maybe been a spent bullet. But it was the way he put him out, like sidestepped his punch and threw him. He just does things in there. And whether it's Al Haymon keeping Spence, like even Steve said, there's one person. They're both to blame, but there's one person definitely pushing not to, more in the negotiation. That's Spence. Like he doesn't. I personally don't think he wants to fight.
Well, if I may retort about that. Oh, go ahead, Riggins. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you compare the last 3 fights, Spence is way better. So
yeah, look, I understand Jimmy's point.
He struggled with Porter, guys. Let's not do that. Porter took him. When Porter was cutting on him and turning, like the referee.
Porter would beat Kavaluskas, brother. Porter would beat Kavaluskas. He would, in my opinion, he would beat
Wasn't Mickey Garcia? Wasn't that in his last 3 fights?
So you got Mikey Garcia. You got Mikey Garcia.
Yeah, but he's a career super featherweight. And he
take away Garcia.
You know what I mean, right, dude? He didn't even stop him. That's not good.
May I say this, please? Okay, so if we compare the two, if we compare when Terence Crawford, okay, so Gamboa jumped up 2 weight classes to fight Crawford, which wasn't on Crawford. People blame Crawford.
It doesn't matter. Crawford took the fight. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Crawford took the fight.
Yeah, that's another subject. But let's just talk. So let's just do comparisons real quick. So if you look at Gamboa, when Gamboa was undefeated, a former champion when he fought Crawford, Crawford stopped Gamboa. Errol Spence went 12 rounds with Mikey Garcia. And let me say this.
Okay, wait a minute.
You can't say like. Let me say this real quick. Let me say this. A lot of people may say, well, Mikey Garcia is tough and Mikey Garcia has a grain of chin. I mean, touche, but Mikey Garcia also was put down by a 126-pounder and Rocky Martinez as well, and Spence couldn't even wobble the guy. So what I'm saying is when you look at Crawford, he finishes these guys, all knockouts at welterweight. I just think that he's more impressive in my opinion, but continue.
Well, I wanted to say that because that I can piggyback off of what Jimmy said too as well. Yes, I do give Crawford credit for stopping these guys, but the problem is this. It wasn't just that Kavaluskas fight and the Kell Brook fight where he was behind in the cards before the stoppages. He was also, he wasn't maybe behind that much on Benavidez, but Benavidez was giving him all the work he could handle. The main point of contention here is that he's getting hit and he has to step it up. He has to turn on the afterburners to take these guys out. So it reminds me a lot of, in a way, of the Wilder situation where his deficiencies, and there are deficiencies there, are being exploited, but he turns it up through sheer force of will and power, and he takes these guys out. Now, my question is, and this is the most important thing of all, forget about who he fought, blah, blah, blah. If he fights Spence and he's getting outboxed by Spence and he turns it on, he turns the afterburners on, and he can't stop Spence, what's he going to do? Because Crawford has proven that he can be hit. He's hittable. But the problem for his opponents is that they can't sustain that pace and they ended up getting taken out. What happens if he can't do that with Spence?
May I quote Goody Patronelli, who was Marvin Hagler's one of his co-trainers? Goody Patronelli told Marvin Hagler before he even became a top contender, before he became a champion, he said, I'm going to give you the pros and cons in boxing. He said one of the cons in boxing is that no matter how good you are, you're going to get hit and you're not going to like it. I mean, who doesn't get hit at the top level? You look at Floyd Mayweather when he fought DeMarcus Corley, he still was a defensive genius at that time, but he got touched up. You look at when he fought Marcus Maidana, he got touched up. He didn't get touched up like that in the Pacquiao fight, but he got touched up against Marcus Maidana in the first fight. We've seen fighters get touched up. You look at when Muhammad Ali fought against I can't think of that Spanish guy after he had beat Corey, but he was getting touched up until he stopped him in the 15th round. But you got Sonny Liston, who some historians say had the best jab. He couldn't land that jab on Ali. Top fighters get touched up. But that's right, and that's my point. That's my point. He's getting tagged up by Benavidez and Kavaluskas. So if Spence can tag him and prevent Crawford from tagging him with the type of shots that Crawford has been using to stop these guys. And let's face it, Spence is more experienced than Kavaluskas. He's stronger than Kavaluskas. He's not as frail. He's not handicapped like Benavidez was. He had handicap parking that day for the fight in the arena. I mean, this guy. Do you really think?
No, he didn't.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding about the stuff. I'm kidding about the handicap parking. I'm kidding about.
I hear
wait. Are you sure about that?
But I don't think Spence has the power that people also say he does either. Myself.
Well,
and my reason behind that is the bitch tit. But that's another thing.
The power is a little bit overrated. What Spence is, he's a grinder. Look how
the power was there to recognize when he wasn't being tested, and it's a reason why. I'm telling you right now.
When he stopped Kell Brook, he just stopped him because he just kept hitting him, and hitting him until he's like, dude, I fucking hit you with like. Fuck, maybe that has something to do with roids. I'm not sure, but he I keep hitting you.
By that broken orbital bone as well, though. He also was compromised by that, Kell Brook against Spence. We have to account for that as well.
Listen, I agree with that, but the Kell Brook that fought Terence Crawford was a dead man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that weigh-in, he looked terrible. That was the worst thing. That was the worst thing Bob Arum could have done for Crawford, was have this guy interview with him. Like, when you lose weight so much, you start falling asleep. Like you haven't slept in like fucking, almost 2 days. He looked like that. He was terrible.
You don't sleep comfortably. When you're that hungry, your body's starving, you don't sleep comfortably.
He was coming off of 3 wins. It's like Crawford.
Yeah, but he was dead at the weigh-in, brother. He was dead at the weigh-in. What good is your 3 wins? Wait, caller.
Can I say that?
What good is your 3 wins if you're not as healthy as you were to get those 3 wins?
I'm putting up the picture, by the way.
But Brook didn't say that. What you say, Brook.
No, Brook don't have to say it. Brook doesn't have to say it. I don't need Brook to tell me you look like a dead man.
Well, can I say to the caller, listen, you know what? You'd make a better if you're going to argue for Crawford. Caller Ray, listen. Obviously, I'm a Crawford fan with you, so I'm with you, right? We and I are in the same boat. We both like Crawford a lot. I think you do yourself justice if you argue his abilities more than when you argue his resume, because it's one of those. It's an objective, and plus, like, there's nothing can be said without a doubt. And I'll say it: Spence has fought the better people. Do I think they're as good as some people think? No, I don't think that Mickey Garcia win was a very good win. He tried, openly admitted, 3 different times in that fight to take him out, and he couldn't. He didn't even rock him, which shocks me. Again, the kid was 5 fights above 126 pounds.
And I agree with you on that, Jimmy. Totally agree with you. I'm a Spence fan. I like Spence.
Okay, I want to say this real fast. My thing is, a lot of people keep. And I was saying this on the Thunderdome panel as well, and I'm going to say this I'm going to say this in the Ring IQ panel as well. I'm going to say this here. My thing is, a lot of people keep trying to give Crawford. They try to make Crawford culpable for these fights not happening. If we look at the logistics of the thing, Keith Thurman admitted on a Fight Height interview that he received an offer to fight Crawford. He turned it down. Danny Garcia admitted he received the $3.5 million, which would have been his highest payday to date if he accepted that fight with pay-per-view upside against Terence Crawford. He turned it down. Earl Spence made what? One, and I hate to be an accountant, but that's what they're doing, so that's what we have to do. If you look at Earl Spence, he made $1.5 million. That's all Fox guaranteed him against in his Danny Garcia fight, where Terence Crawford made $4 million, and he's telling him he has to take 30 or 20%. These guys literally don't want to fight Crawford. What is Crawford to do, honestly? What is he to do? I'm asking y'all that. What is he to do when these guys...
Well, Ray, can I tell you something? Spence made more than 1.5. That was his guarantee. I believe he made up to $7 million on that pay-per-view because there was a pay-per-view. But guarantee he does only get 1.5. Crawford gets 3.5 million guaranteed. He gets $2 million more guaranteed than what Spence gets.
You remember what Bob Arum said with pay-per-view? He said that the networks take up to 60%, and you still got to give out.
Well, the network gets 50%. Yeah, the provider.
Well, listen. I got to step in here because look, Ray, I got to step in here because this whole thing about talking about the money and all that. Look, we had Steve Kim on. He had one, and he's about as informed as it gets in the boxing world, and he says that what he knows and what he's heard, he thinks it's Spence that's sort of not doing enough to get the fight. That's what he said, right, Jamie? Or am I maybe I'm mistaken?
Yes,
that's
he
what
said
said.
they're both culpable. They said this is Crawford's fault. Ray, this is what Steve Kim said. He said, I hold Crawford responsible for not wanting to get off the 50-50, but that's where it ends. He said everything else, the fucking jumping around, now I want 80-20. And he just said, yes, if I have to say who's more culpable, I'm using that word wrong, but holding this fight up, he did say it's Spence. But again, that's tied to, I think, the network. I don't think any of them are supposed to leave. He just also offered Porter. He matched Porter's highest payday, and Porter turned that down too. And so did Danny, so did Bona. I agree. What is he supposed to do?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, we can't, Ray, we can't get into the whole money thing because none of us really know what's going on. We can only piece together things from what we get told by the experts and by behind the scenes guys. The most important thing is the fight itself. Unfortunately, it appears that fight might never happen. That's what Steve Kim said. Now,
that's on Spence though. That's Spence. That's
I don't know who it's on. I don't know who it's on, but I will say this to sort of find some middle ground here. If they do end up fighting, Crawford's he's not a pushover. I think that we can all agree on that. We can talk about who could win and blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, Spence would have to show up at 100% if he wants to beat this guy.
He's going to have to be. He better make sure that there's no problems with him. And so,
isn't this a sin? It's an indictment on the sport. It's an indictment on the sport that we're not seeing those two fight. What a sick sin.
Yeah, but I mean, hey.
But can I say this real fast? Because I don't want to hold the panel up. I know y'all probably have callers. I don't want to hold everyone up, but I just want to say this. When you have two fighters, let's look at Sugar Ray Leonard, right? When Sugar Ray Leonard beat Benavidez, then he lost. Why am I forgetting names? Major names too. What the hell is
he
wrong
beat
with
Benitez and then lost to Duran.
Because you're thinking faster because you're talking faster. You're rushing your mind. That's why.
Yeah,
that's what it is. You're rushing it.
Okay, so
so when he beat Benitez and lost to Duran. Yep.
Yeah, and then. Yeah, then he beat Duran and then had a gimme fight.
The rematch.
So he was 25. He was 25 years old, and he fought Tommy Hearns when Tommy Hearns was 22. Right? They unified.
Yes.
That's when Leonard became the unified champ. But what I'm saying is that Tommy Hearns was with Don King, and Leonard was with Bob Arum. They still made the fight happen. Then you look a couple years later when Oscar De La Hoya in Trinidad fought. Trinidad was with Don King. Oscar De La Hoya was with Bob Arum. Then you look at when Donald Curry and Milton McCrory fought. All that welterweight unification, they made these fights happen. Every time you hear Spence talk, it's, I can fight Canelo. But you just made it a stipulation that for Crawford to fight you, he got to come over to the side of the street. But you'll go over to Canelo's side of the street. Or I can fight Pacquiao, or I can fight Ugas. He never, makes Terence Crawford his priority, and to me that's just a clear duck because when you look at Teofimo Lopez, he didn't talk like he wanted to fight everyone else. He said, I want Lomachenko, and I'm going to beat Nakanakani to fight him, and I'm going to beat Richard Coleman. That's going to put me in the position, and then he got Lomachenko. Whether y'all think he won or lost, he was adamant about who he's won. Errol Spence never made that commitment. So that's what I'm saying. He doesn't want to fight. That's just what I got to say, guys.
And it's going to affect his legacy, too.
Yeah.
that he never took on Crawford when he could have. And it's true this way. I got to look at Top Rank. Look at the 3 fights: Berchelt, Valdez, Lomachenko, Lopez, and then fucking what was that third one? What was crazy? We just saw fucking well, there's a third one in there too. That those 3 fights alone crush anything that's come out of the PBC in the last 2 years.
I mean, their last good card was when the Charlos fought on the same card, right? And that was pay-per-view.
Exactly.
So
well, the paper that was on Fox. That was their last free good one, right? Was the Charlos?
No, that was pay-per-view.
Oh, no, that was a pay-per-view too. Jesus Christ, they haven't done anything. Everything is on pay-per-view. Yeah.
That's how they. That's the only way that it seems like they can pay their fighters.
It's exactly the only way that they can pay their fighters, and probably like site fees and shit like that. Because I know Ray said the caller, how could they have paid him that much? Well, Spence, if they only took in, it's called losing money. They lose money on pay-per-views. As correct, just to let you know, on Wilder Ortiz 2, the PBC or whoever put up the money, and Fox, and I wasn't told, Tom Hauser wrote an article, and he has the inside of everything, and he said that Fox was promised a minimum of 500,000 pay-per-views, and it did under fucking, what did it do, under 2? So who knows what they actually took. That fight that Tom Hauser knows lost $15,500,000. Think about.
Well, Ray, thank you for your call, man. It's an interesting subject. Listen, we hope the fight happens. That's the most important thing. But it seems like this is just well, hopefully, man. But I mean, it just seems like it's one of those fights that every generation has one fight that didn't happen, and for this generation right now, it seems like it could be the one that unfortunately doesn't get pulled out.
I think when it's all said and done, it's going to happen.
But now, okay, now the question is, will it be too late? Because let's face it, the facts. Crawford's about.
I would say it's already too late.
I think it's going to only happen after the PBC fucking finally runs out of places to show their fucking fight.
Or host stations. Yeah,
because everybody's going to have to scatter the wind. They'll lose half the, JN's, whatever, DAZN and whoever's left standing.
All right, go ahead, Ray.
Well, I appreciate. Dre, D-R-E.
Oh, Dre. Okay.
Oh, it's Dre.
Dre. I thought you said Ray. I'm sorry. Dre. Okay.
No problem. But yeah, I appreciate y'all taking my call and being pragmatic and hearing me out. I appreciate it. Y'all fellas take it easy.
You too, man.
Take care.
Call back next episode. All right, man.
All right, cool. No problem.
Take it easy, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right. Hey, listen, it's an interesting
kid.
Yeah, very passionate. He went deep into the history. I do that sometimes too. Well, I'll go into that. Well, he beat this guy, he beat that, and then I just, because I love boxing so much, so I go into it. But sometimes, you do have to sort of try to stick to the main issue. But that's the problem with this Crawford Spence fight, because not only can you talk about a lot about the actual fight itself, but then all the shenanigans that are going on around it. I mean, like Steve said, it starts to get a little bit depressing to talk about the actual business side of it, because it just seems, well, we're never going to really get to the bottom of it, I don't believe.
What's for me real depressing is when they start fucking, if you look at which fan base is actually, I mean, let's be honest, Spencer, you go on Twitter, they're actually like argue against it. They'll spend all day tweeting why it shouldn't happen, or he hasn't earned his right. I've never seen a fan base.
Yeah, I don't like that. And
it seems like it runs across the gamut on the PBC. It just seems like that fan base, maybe because they're into the PBC, they don't want anything outside, they argue against fights. I mean, literally, the LDBC is tweeting or making videos why, it's the biggest fight in the world without a doubt is Joshua fucking, Fury, and that should be in England. I think that's a fucking sin.
That should be in England. There's no doubt.
Of course. That's such a kick in the face to the British fans, man.
Well, they put
them on there.
Boxing's not too far from real life situations that's going on today, in terms of politics. But that fight should be. Boxing is not that hard to fix. It's just you got to make these fights and make fights in places where it makes sense. EJ Fury, two guys from the UK.
Make it there, exactly. Two worst things to happen to boxing: Mayweather's O and fucking Showtime and HBO both signing contract deals with fighters. That was the fucking kiss. To me, that's when it all started going to shit.
Yep. When
fighters got obsessed with the O, that instantly started making, especially kids coming up. Again, Caleb Plant, and I hop on him because you just look at that kid's resume is as thin as fucking tissue paper. That kid wouldn't have sniffed a title shot back in the 80s. Just because you didn't fight anybody. You had to at least fight a couple of dudes before you start calling out for the fucking biggest fight in boxing. Like, how dare you try to say you even think you deserve Canelo? Yeah, I don't know. Pisses me.
Yeah, man, that the rumor is that Canelo and Plant are already in negotiations. So it seems like Canelo's already even looking past Billy Joe Saunders.
Because he knows he's
gonna win. You know who's fighting Plant next? Daryl. Fucking the Daryl there. The fucking kid who just bored everybody to death on that horrible Fox headline against Davis. Daryl Davis there. Well, I don't know his.
Here's another thing that's killing boxing. It's predetermined outcomes, right? So in other words, you just said Canelo is already looking past Billy Joe Saunders. So if he's doing that and planning to fight with Caleb Plant, then why is this fight even being talked about? Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo. What we're gonna watch a sparring fight, a sparring match where Billy Joe Saunders is just there to give Canelo some work and make it to the end of the bell, maybe get stopped late and Canelo's the winner. No, I don't care about fights like that. If that's the situation, that's just a predetermined outcome. One guy's going in there to lose the fight. He doesn't feel he can win.
Well, that's why I don't want to see Terence Crawford as Josito Lopez. That's why it's such a crap fight, because we already know Crawford can handle guys like that.
But I have a feeling Josito Lopez at least is going to try to win the fight.
Well, it's like Butcher already said about
fight next.
Not well. It was a rumor on Twitter. I don't know how big. I don't know how true it is, but
nobody.
And I hope it doesn't happen either. I personally don't hope it. I hope it doesn't. But I have a feeling Joselito Lopez is going to go in there trying to win the fight.
He was doing well against fucking Thurman until he ran out of gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? It's
Thurman, he just that whole PBC. None of them are doing anything. You see Thurman lately? Dude looks like he's fucking 200 pounds.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he's huge.
And he's only like 5'6", 5'7", right? What is he, 5'7",
well,
5'8"?
they list him, I think they list him at 5'8". But yeah, he's at least the $180, $185. Easy. He's got a gut. Yeah, he's all bloated and shit. Those guys, there's nothing on the docket for those guys. There's not even anything like, think about it. Why would fucking Porter turn down $2 million guaranteed? I mean, it's coming from another promoter. First off, where's your promoter? $2 million ain't enough? Okay. Have fucking your promoter thrown another $1 million to you. So now you're getting $3 million. But it's so crazy that it's incumbent upon Bob Arum to pay PBC fighters. It's nuts.
It's interesting when this whole PBC thing went down in 2015. All these fighters that went, he was using, Al Haymon was using Mayweather as leverage. It's like, hey, I can get you this type of payday, man. Look at all the money I got up front.
He was the carrot.
Right.
He was the carrot had dangled. And he was in there in all those
golden carrot
too.
He was the
That's
golden
why he
carrot.
calls it us. Well, when he speaks to the PBC, he talks in plurals like us. Like he ties himself in. Like TMT is an offshoot. Giovanni Davis, in all intents and purposes, fights the PBC.
Of course he does. Yeah.
Oh, he is advised by Al Haymon.
Floyd Mayweather's his front man, or maybe Al Haymon is Floyd's front man. Who knows?
Well, yeah, he's Floyd. I know Haymon is he is Davis's advisor. He does advise. So TMT is there to just get a slice of the pie. So isn't Broner, I guess. I guess Broner owns a piece of fucking Davis.
Yeah, man, listen, with the whole PBC thing, let's not forget Al Haymon had those work offers on his side. But as soon as that started running out, you started seeing the fight dates dwindling. And now when Jimmy, you say that poor Thurman sitting around with no fights and a gut growing, he's got to lay off those chips, man, with the Himalayan salt. I know it's supposed to be healthier, but they're still potato chips, man. They're not good for your health. So it's a shame. It's a shame what happened with the PBC, but hey, it's like I'm pretty sure people in the industry saw the signs, but people like we were saying, that Mayweather, the promise of that Mayweather money, that Mayweather fight, and look at him now.
And it was supposed to be in-house. They had their own belts. He had full intentions. Even Al Bernstein tweeted it. I mean, he couldn't deny the tweet. It was an attempted takeover. He bought up all the time slots, filled it with irrelevant fucking fights with fighters with no geographical relevance to the area. It didn't matter. He wanted all the time slots, and he thought he was going to starve them all out. And what would happen? And he wanted to get rid of all the sanctioning bodies. And he wanted PBC belts, just like the UFC. He wanted to turn boxing to UFC, and he failed. and he had no second. There was no like plan B. Now he's just winging it. It's just ironic that the guy who borrowed $1 billion to make boxing free is now the most expensive promotional company to follow. If you want to even watch the
that was the scam, Jimmy. That was the scam. Tell people you're going to give them free stuff and then get them hooked.
It always fails.
Yeah, it always fails. But
fails.
it's purposely done. It's
well,
it's like.
Well, look at his model suck, dude. He honestly thought, like, build it, it'll come. Yeah, great. You landed, you bought all those time slots. But he expected Fox, NBC, all these guys who said, yeah, okay, you're willing to buy the fucking spot. You're willing to pay for the commercial place. Remember a bunch of fights when they still were doing that, when they were buying time slots? We're going commercial free for the rest of this fight for you fans. No, you're not. You just couldn't sell a time slot.
Oh, jeez.
You couldn't sell them to anybody. This fight sucks so bad, you couldn't get a tampon commercial. You fucking liar. So the bottom line is that all these networks said, yeah, we're good. Not one event was bought by any of these networks. Fox just bought a package deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Listen, the whole PBC thing, it's on its last legs, unfortunately. I wanted them to succeed, so we would get more fights. But obviously, their business plan was a little askew, if you ask me. By the way, shout out to Michael Poe. A while back, he contributed with the super chat. He says, "Thanks, guys, for having me another day for so long. Cruciate it next time. I'll make sure that Kevin is on. I wasn't mad, but I get up that way." Okay, I think he's referring to the Friday episode, which was an open lines Friday episode, and it was chaotic as it can get here at BDA Boxing. Shout out to
a zoo.
Was that?
It was a zoo. It was a zoo. It was like a guy's.
Hey, I liked it. Fuck.
Yeah, no, I did too. It was awesome. Kevin's a shit stir. I just sat back for most of it and listened. It was fucking pretty funny. And then the neighbor's house caught on fire, and I missed the second show. That's why I wasn't on.
Whoa, the neighbor's house caught on fire? What the hell?
Yeah, dude, literally Friday night, dude, right when you said, okay, I'm going to hang up, calling Michael Carvajal, I went out to walk my dog, brought him out front. As I'm coming down front stairs, I'm like, wow, somebody's fucking really using their wood stove. I can smell it, right? I'm like, holy shit. I open the door and here comes the fire trucks. 2 houses down the left. The whole top is a 3-floor tenement. Whole top was engulfed in flames.
Why'd you set it on fire? Why'd you set it on fire, man?
What's that?
Why'd you set it on fire? Did they do something to you?
Actually, the douchebags who lived there, I'm glad they're gone. But
oh, come on. Don't say that, man.
No, they were assholes. They were young. Nobody got hurt. Didn't lose any animals. The first thing I checked, didn't any cats or anything die. But no, they got out. They were fucking just knuckleheads. They were a bunch of young dudes.
Hey, Jimmy, I like the way you say asshole, man. You say asshole. I like that. I'm gonna start calling people assholes just like that. You're an asshole.
So one time I used my R correctly, asshole. I put R's. I don't use them in regular words, and then I add them where they don't belong.
No, that's cool.
Listen,
I like it, man.
Fellas, thank you for. By the way, Kevin didn't call in today. Should have called in because
Kevin's countryman got knocked out.
You think so? I don't know.
Glowacki. First of all, can I say something quickly?
Yeah.
Glowacki. Okoli. We gotta do a film study on this dude. This dude is odd, to say the least. To me,
that's right, dude.
He's got a weird body. Is that a real boxer? I mean, I know he throws punches. I've never seen a boxer like him. Never. And I'm not saying that in a good way. I'm not saying that in a good way at all.
Now, what channel was that on? I missed that.
Oh, it was on DAZN. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go into DAZN and check that out because
weird body shape. He's got muscles, but it's like flabby muscles.
Because that's why Kevin was mad, right? Because he didn't have his name in the title.
Yeah, I think he was kidding. I hope he was kidding. I hope.
Yeah, he was kidding.
Yeah, he was kidding. No, Kevin was
kidding. Yeah, joking around. But yeah, so then the dude fucking I'm
throwing a little shade at Kevin. I like Kevin personally. He makes the show interesting.
Well, listen, variety is a spice of life, man, and that's what we try to get here on BDA Boxing. Speaking of boxing, next week we got Povetkin versus White, the much anticipated rematch. It's gonna let us know what's up in the heavyweight division. Arrange a couple
Povetkin.
It's Povetkin. Yeah, right. That's how it's. Povetkin. All right.
Who do you think's gonna win that?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jimmy. We'll talk about it on Wednesday. What do you think?
Yeah, we can't give it all away, Jimmy.
All right. Oh, I didn't know we were doing a show on it. Okay.
Yeah. Preview show on Wednesday. And by the way, let me just check out real quick, now that you mentioned it, which other fights. I think there's another card that same day, or I could be mistaken. Hold on. Opening up ESPN here. By the way, we do have to do Second Renaissance within the next 2 days. We got to put set a limit. 2 days on the on the what?
Remember, that's a time slot too, man. We got to, we're neglecting our Second Renaissance duties, man.
That's true. On serial killers, we should talk about serial killers. And
I like this one. This one I'm going to enjoy.
And of course, Bucho wants to do a special episode on OJ, the whole OJ saga. So that's 2 things we have there. 2 things on the docket.
Okay. We'll have to go back.
I'm going to go watch. Well, go see if it's on the archives. If you guys have like HBO or whatever, it's usually in their archives. You know what? You want to see a good movie? Go, if we're going to talk about serial killers, go watch Citizen X. That's a great movie, man. It's about that Russian serial killer. Brovatsky, whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude, he traveled the rails killing children. Yeah, you'd meet him and he would take it because he was intimate and he was impotent. And basically he had a job. He was always shit on. He had a dominating wife and he would get impotent, so you couldn't get high. The only way to get high is when he was violent and he murdered 56 children and up along this. And for years, the Russians wouldn't, that's an American fucking phenom. It's a great movie. Donald Sutherland's is in it. It's a great movie. This one detective was on it in America, like in the FBI. You're in a serial killer case. They every 18 months or 2 years they swap you out because they know it causes detrimental effect to somebody going after that. They kept this same dude was on it for like 7 years, and it's just anyway. It's a great movie. Nobody believed in the beginning. He said it was one person doing all the killings, but and he's the one once he was found guilty, he's the one who whipped his penis out in the courtroom. Yeah, crazy.
Hey, he's stealing my moves. Now, you know what? It's a shame that you mentioned Richard Sutherland. Because, no, wait a minute. That's not him. What the fuck? That's some gay guy. What's the name of the actor?
Keith Sutherland's son. It's Donald Sutherland and his son.
Donald Sutherland, yeah. Donald Sutherland. It's a shame you brought up his name because every time somebody mentions his name, I got to play that clip of that movie where he tries to kiss Michael Douglas in the elevator. But I don't have it with me right now, so you guys are safe for today. Yeah, by the way, the other fight on the docket for Saturday, it's Tim Tszyu versus somebody else in Australia. So we got the Povetkin, for all intents and purposes, really just Povetkin versus White. Now, people are asking the chat room, when is the serial killer episode? Listen, we're going to create an event, so you should know beforehand. So it's going to be within the next 2 days for sure. Because if I say, we're going to do it, and then we never actually fucking do it. So within the next 2 days.
You're going to be held accountable. That's what they don't want to be held accountable. Is what's going on here.
Good. I'm going to do I'm going to study up on some of my favorite serial killers. It's a fascinating subject, right?
It's fascinating because it's so perverse and it's on the what?
I got a little twist on the serial killer stuff. How certain people who have killed before don't classify as serial killers when that is the very definition of a serial killer.
Well, they also do things like, say, if you kill 7-8 people in a single day, right? That's in essence a serial killer because you killed that many people.
Well, how about if you've done it in a span of like 5 years?
Well, that's definitely the essence of a serial killer when you spread it out. But when you spread, that's definitely. But because the other way, when it's done all in one day, it's a spree killing. Different mindset. Like most serial killers are made; they're not born. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why FBI Profile has been so successful by studying them and talking to them. They find out almost across the board they're all mutilated or tortured. Started out with insects, burning insects with magnifying glass, to doing terrible things to neighbors' cats. Almost across the board, they find that. So there's so many tells that you're in essence going to become a serial killer.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because some people say, well, is it biological or is it the surrounding area, the
Are
nurture?
You born or you made? Yeah. Exactly. Nature or nurture.
It's got to be a bit of both, but I don't think it's all genetic. Like nobody wakes up one day, or nobody's born and they have a gene to become a serial killer. You know what I mean? There's aggressiveness, and that can manifest itself in a
Richard Ramirez knew when he was going to become one. When he got a sexual charge, when he watched his uncle, who was an abusive Vietnam vet, shot his wife in the face when they were arguing.
Jeez,
and he was in a room right in front of him when he was 13 years old, and he said he got an erection because the brutality of it and the way the uncle, I guess, like kicked her body out of the way and sat down and smoked a cigarette like she was just meat. Like, it's just crazy. So imagine being 13, and he worshipped his uncle. So that, boom.
That probably add to it.
Yeah.
That probably added to it. Yeah.
Of course it did, absolutely. And John Wayne Gacy, all of them, they all have some kind of traumatic incident. If not, a lot of them had, believe it or not, traumatic head injuries as children. They got their heads bashed in on a fall or something, and it caused something to their brain that gets rid of empathy.
Yep.
You know what? We can also talk about when people just snap, a group of people, like, the Rape and Nanking. That's an interesting too, on how you can get people through training to do things that they would never imagine of doing, and that's an interesting case right there. Well, let's get into that whole thing.
That's mob psychosis. It's very easy. It's why riots can happen so easy. It's a domino effect.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Yep.
No, I'm looking forward to it, dude. Absolutely. Let me know, man. I'll make sure I put the time aside.
Fantastic.
Weekends are always good because the old lady's at the mill, and so. But yeah, no, anytime, dude.
Well, like I was telling Recognize, it would probably be at night. That way, it's like some sort of like a sleepover. It's like a sleepover where we're telling a scary stories, except that there's no.
Can I just say real quick too? Recognize. You want to hang on? I want to tell you real quick. I gotta tell you something.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'll hang on.
All right, cool.
All right, you guys hang on, and everybody else, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'm glad everybody was on here. Everybody that donated the super chat. I'm talking about Iceman, One Foot Out the Door, DT, Jaguar, Chris K, Michael Poe, and Brian. Brian, I can't read your comment for some reason. They won't allow me here. I can only see your name. But thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate it. Shout out to everybody who joined us on the panel, Race Card, and everybody in the who joined us via the chat. By the way, shout out to Steve Kim for calling in as well. Pleasant surprise.
Exactly.
Very insightful.
I was going to say, in case you didn't. Can I just also say too, because I never say it. I want to say thanks to all the guys who send you guys money. All the guys who send super chat or whatever, what the terminology. I just think that's really cool. And I just want to say I appreciate that on behalf of BDA.
Well, thank you, man, Jimmy. Yeah, because that money goes to good use, because we actually put these episodes on Spreaker, and we have an account that costs money. And then there's also the phone lines, Blog Talk. We got to pay for that every month. So all of that money, every little bit helps into that. And it allows us to connect with the people as well and let them have
it allows me to get a paycheck, guys. So I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, over at the BDA headquarters. But anyway, listen, fellas, thank you for joining us. Everybody, Iceman, Race Card, Fight Film, GB Guthrie, Combat Elite, Iceman, Overhand, Chet Collins, Enoch Powell, GB Guthrie, Shepherd of Sons, and everybody else. Thank you, fellas, for joining us.